And you're live. Go for it.
National champion autocrosser and voice of the SCCA National Championship runoffs. In addition, we'll have Tom O'Gorman, multi-time Pirelli World Challenge champion, and Kyle Heyer from SimTV, who's doing triple duty by producing and directing this broadcast today. They're both going to be along for the ride. Last weekend, we were at Sebring, where over 15,000 viewers witnessed 5 great races, where 8 racers stood atop the Super Tour podium. But this week, we're at the place that Paul Newman calls heaven on earth, Virginia International Raceway. The 17-turn, 3.27-mile racetrack, akin to a country club for race cars, sits right on the Virginia-North Carolina border. It was host to the SCCA National Sports Car Championship from the track's opening in 1957 until 1964, and just this past October played host to the SCCA National Championship runoffs. I can honestly say that I'm happy to be back, Larry, and Tom, who's with us here as well, as the real-life Super Tour, originally scheduled to be held here in April, was canceled. But like last week, we'll be bringing you 5 races across 8 different classes. And in order to handle the ever-increasing number of Sports Car Club of America drivers who want to take part, we've gone once again and made some changes so that more racers can have #FunWithCars. Why don't you tell us about it, Tom?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, did you hear that number? 15,000 people tuned into last weekend's race across the platforms that we had live streaming. We had over 200 drivers take part at Road Atlanta. Now we moved up to VIR. Again, we've upped the car counts to 50 per group, and we're hoping to see, we have already about 30 drivers filling up the Spec Racer Ford race. The touring race, which is coming up second, is already live for practice, and that race is full, 50 drivers across 2 classes. So the demand is high, the viewership is high, just to watch these fake race cars do fake racing, but it's not fake, it's so real, and the action is incredible. I forget the question that you asked me, actually. I don't know if I answered it already or not.
You got most of it, Tom. We wanted to go over the format just a little bit as my partner, Larry McLeod, he should be jumping into his virtual race car right now. He's going to be racing in the Spec Racer Ford race. And for 3 of the 5 races that we have, this race here, the next race coming up, and also a race a little later today, the format is that the drivers have 70 minutes to practice. They'll go out and have a 15-minute qualifying session, which our Spec Racer Fords are going out for right now, and then they will have a 20-minute sprint race. But for 2 of the race groups, our Skip Barber Series Formula 2000 cars, and also the Global MX-5 Cup cars, which will end the evening with us here, they have a slightly different format, Tom. They have, I believe, a 60-minute qualifying session, more or less a play-in, and we're actually taking in, I think, about 125 cars?
Yeah, maximum of 125 cars. I think, I don't know if your mic died there or not, but we're taking, because the demand for the Skip Barber F2000 and the MX-5, Global MX-5 Cup car are higher than the other groups. Instead of just making it first come, first serve for the first 50 cars, which works for the other 3 races, we've opened up a qualifying format that will allow us to take up to 125 drivers in a qualifying session. Their single fastest lap is then put into the overall leaderboard, and we're going to take the top 45 plus the 5 top drivers from the previous week. So to boil it down simply, every race tonight has around an hour of practice. The practice for Skippys and MX-5s counts as fast lap, and then the top 50 are going to be racing for each of these races for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that has been done really because we've had not only thousands and thousands of viewers here each week, but we've had a huge increase in the number of Sports Car Club of America members who want to take part in these races. Our first week in Atlanta, we had over 300 drivers. Last week at Sebring, we had over 400, and I don't have the number this week, but I think we're actually close to 500 different members that have put their names into the hat and plan to take part for at least some of the Super Tour events that we are holding here for you all today. So on track right now, you do have the Spec Racer Ford cars. They're out on, some of them are just completing their out laps. So let me bring in Kyle Heyer. Kyle's going to be with us for this first race, and he's got a lot going on right now, Kyle, and hopefully we'll be able to see exactly what we have here in just a second. But we've got the cars going out. It is, as you mentioned, Tom, a 15-minute qualifying session, and we are now just about 3 minutes into it.
Hey guys, okay, I think we're all set now. We had a little bit of technical issues to work through the first part of the broadcast, but now we're set for qualifying here, Greg. So as we work now, we got 11 minutes and 40 seconds left, but VIR, a 3.27 mile circuit. It's a long way around here.
It certainly is, and just the out lap takes up considerable time in that 15-minute qualifying session. A very challenging track, a lot of flow, as opposed to Sebring last weekend, which was dead flat with no camber in the corners, no hills to speak of. VIR, one of those tracks that's built into the land, and when it was resurrected back in 2000, the owners tried to keep the original format as closely as possible, and they've done a very good job with that. There's a lot of elevation change here, and a lot of it can definitely call a driver out if they're not ready for it.
I think now it's a pretty good time to take a look at our track map here, Greg. Of course, this is the 3.27 mile circuit, 17 corners. There's a whole lot of them. Let's take a look at what VIR looks like. And here's a look down from high above Virginia International Raceway, and 3.27 miles, just over 17 corners. But a lot of the corners here, Greg, have names. There's NASCAR Bend, there's South Bend, there's Roller Coaster. Tell me a little bit about this circuit.
Absolutely, and a lot of these names harken back to the days when this track was first opened in 1957. As we mentioned, lots of great flow to this track. You'll notice now scrolling right up towards the top of the screen is the front straight here, which brings you down towards turn 1, what is known as horseshoe turns 1 and 2. Then a very quick run with a little bit of a bend between 2 and 3 into the NASCAR bend, a 90-degree turn, and then you've got left hook, a very sharp, tight right-hander. That's turn number 4, and that will bring you around to Snake. It doesn't look like much on the map here, but some very quick switchbacks, and then you go pretty much straight away underneath the bridge, and then up through the uphill S's. The uphill S's, 3 turns left and right and left, or probably actually right, left, right. Let's try that again. And very typical that you're going to see drivers take a late entry to that as they come through. But as soon as they get to the top of those S's, and they can be, depending on the car, going 130, 140 miles an hour when they do, they're going to have this sweeping left-hand turn called South Bend. And not uncommon to see drivers just turn in early, push wide, and go for a long ride through the grass here at Virginia International Raceway. But that then brings you up to what for a number of years was the iconic turn here at Virginia International Raceway known as Oak Tree. So named because there was a couple 100-year-old oak tree right at the apex of the turn. You would drive right underneath that tree. Unfortunately, with some very bad weather to VIR a couple of years ago, the tree fell, and it's really changed the Kyle, really changed the view through that corner and how drivers approach it, because they get a much better view. They can actually see all the way down the long back straight here at VIR, as opposed to looking right at a 6-foot wide tree trunk. And so they go down the back straight, very long here at VIR. It rises up, and just as it rises up, you come up to turns 14 and 14A, which is the top of what they affectionately call the roller coaster here at VIR. We see the cars coming through roller coaster right now. It's a very, very steep drop, and then the drivers will set up for the very last turn, which you see them coming through right here now, is Hog Pen, which besides being downhill is also off camber quite a bit, and it is a very hard turn to get right, to stay on the throttle, to be aggressive at, and not have the car wash wide into the very expansive grass here. It is a very tricky 3.25 miles, and but when you get it right, it's very, very satisfying.
So time's already getting put down at the top of the screen here as we got about 7 minutes left in qualifying. And last week we had a really entertaining race at the front of the field, but we got a whole bunch of cars here tonight. But I think we got a long day of racing ahead of us, Greg. So Larry McLeod in the 33 and Jackson McLeod, the father-son team, currently first and second. They worked together a little bit last week at Sebring. I think they'll try to do something similar today.
Yeah, I would expect that they will. Now, I believe they started the race at Sebring on the second row, whereas right now, as you mentioned, they are sitting towards the front. We also have Caleb Patry in the number 198 car. He is currently your third fastest driver on track, and I believe he was actually your pole sitter last week in Spec Racer Fords. Whereas last week you had drivers working the draft almost around this entire course, you may not see that as much in certain sections of the track here at Virginia International Raceway. Of course, coming out of Oak Tree, and it's Oak Tree turn, as we see Caleb Patry coming through Oak Tree right now, it kind of reminds me very much of that turn 7 at Road Atlanta that we saw 2 weeks ago, that you really need to get a good dig out of there. You need to turn in a little bit late and be able to get the power down, and that is certainly a range and an area on that back straight where you want to stay in the draft if you can. And then you have typically prime passing opportunities up at the top of the hill there, up at Roller Coaster, going into 14 and 14A, as we see a driver coming through there right now. And when you get onto the front straight as well, you want to do that as in addition. You can see the driver there having issues with the entrance to Hog Pen. And now we have, and that's the 15 of Stephen Waller in the number 5 car, who cuts across a number of cars coming down through Hog Pen. And believe me, that's not an area where you can easily let out of the throttle without having the car, without having the rear end of the car step out on you and go off track. But there are a number of places here, again, that long back straight, the front straight as well, where the draft is very helpful. Another place that you'll see is as the drivers come out of South Bend, which is at the top of those S's, you won't necessarily see the draft, but you'll have a lot of drivers that maybe were in the draft coming through the uphill S's, try to take advantage of a car that may overslow at South Bend, and so you typically have some good passing opportunities heading down the hill from South Bend, and then the track will compress once again and head back up towards Oak Tree.
And you mentioned earlier how this track is beautiful and green and very lush. There's a lot of grass out here, but there's very little, if any, pavement runoff. And I think that's a big concern, especially at South Bend. See, as they crest the hill there, there's a lot of grass, and that'll actually lead you over all the way to the back straight. And we've seen issues in the past here where if you go wide in South Bend, you can slide all the way into that big island of grass in the middle of the racetrack, and it's a long time to get your car back on course. So keeping the tires on the racetrack is so important.
Exactly. You can, as a matter of fact, you can see right now the big open area from South Bend. Actually, I'm looking at it on my monitor. There we go here, with a big open area that you have up in the upper right-hand corner as drivers come through South Bend, and especially if the grass is damp there, it can be a very hard run. It's a little difficult to see it from this blimp view, but as you go down through the grass there, it's almost like a pit. It has a very big drop off as you come out of South Bend, and then you have to rise back up to get to the back straight. So very challenging here, and interesting that you should say that there isn't a lot of runoff here, Kyle, that just a few years ago at Virginia International Raceway, they actually widened the track in a couple of different places. One notable place is the exit of South Bend, where drivers seem to have trouble. Also on the exit of the NASCAR bend, turn number 3. However, that is not represented in the Virginia International Raceway that we see on iRacing and on your broadcast today. We are still running the older configuration of Virginia International Raceway here for you.
Yeah, I think this laser scan is at least from 2006 or 2007, so it's kind of dated in that regard in terms of the accuracy to the track nowadays, but it has been graphically refreshed as of last year, so nice brand new textures and some new objects around the racetrack to kind of bring it up to 2020 standards. But qualifying is underway, Greg, and we've got Max Grau currently your provisional pole sitter with a 210.931. That's the best time that he's laid down. He's the only driver under 211 right now.
Yeah, he is, and he has almost, looks like almost 0.6 of a second, a little bit over 0.6 on Jackson McLeod, who's currently your second fastest driver on track. And as the action has unfolded here in qualifying, it looks like the father and son pairing of Larry and Jackson McLeod has been split up just a little bit. We've got Caleb Patry in the 198 car. He is currently your third fastest driver with a fast lap time of a 211.922, so almost 0.4 off of Jackson McLeod. And then Max King, who we saw last week, one of the two King brothers. He's driving the number 26 car. He is the fourth fastest. And then we have Zach Rivard, noted Formula F driver in Sports Car Club of America Road Racing. He is your fifth fastest driver in the number 15 car. It looks like the Sunoco car, as he now crests up through the S's and on his way.
This is coming down the hill after a roller coaster here with 1 minute and 40 seconds left in qualifying, and we got just over 25 cars lined up for this first race of the evening. We got 4 more after this, so make sure you don't go anywhere as soon as this race completes. And so, looks like we're going to have Grau, McLeod, Patry, King, and Rivard, your top 5. Then Larry McLeod, Justin Clougherty in the 18 car back in 7th. Dave Ogburn in 8th. Steve Ray 9th. And Kevin Bubar in 10th. And Rivard goes 2nd, quick Larry, Greg, with 2:11.336. Larry, however, is still out on track trying to go one better, and he wasn't able to. That was his best lap, but only 6th best.
Yeah. Maybe it would help if Larry heard you on on this one here. Might pick up the pace a little bit. But we do have a lot of the same drivers that we've seen over the first couple of weeks of the Super Tour, the E-Super Tour here. As you mentioned, Justin Clougherty is out there on track, currently running 7th. Dave Ogburn in the number 08 car. He's currently sitting on the pit lane. It looks like at the very front end of the pit lane, running a fast lap of a 2:12.138. That is good enough for 6th fastest right now. 8th fastest right now. My mistake. Then we've got Steve Ray in the number 11 car out as well. And let's see. I know we've had Mike Taylor in the 66 car out with us quite a bit. He is currently sitting in 15th position as we now have just about 20 seconds left to go in this qualifying session. Actually, just about 10 seconds to go in qualifying here.
A couple drivers have chosen not to lay down times or are just starting to roll now. Chris Harp, one of them. There's a few drivers down here, including Jake King, that are not going to get a chance to lay down a qualifying time. So that's not going to be very good for them to have to drive through 25 other cars if they want a chance to win this race. And Greg, it's not going to be long enough really to take your time. If you want to get up to the lead from 25th, 26th spot, you're going to have to go immediately, and that's risky.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely very risky. One of the things, as we talk a little bit more about the race and some of the vagaries of driving VIR, the starts at VIR, although it has a very wide front straight, you don't typically see incidents with cars getting together on the start, but what you do see is as they come down into turn 1 with really on the outside of turn 1, especially at the time this track was scanned, did not have a lot of grip there. And it's always the running joke that you never want to end up in the Dan River. If you go off at turn 1, depending on the speed, it can certainly happen. So we'll definitely want to be watching there and see which drivers can make their way to the inside, just like Larry McLeod, maybe taking that move to the inside a little, maybe a little bit more seriously than we meant. But there you go. All right, so we have now. Let's see. We've got the checkered flag out, and so we'll take a look here. Larry McLeod, who he just pulled off on the inside of turn 1 because his session was over. Now, you mentioned Jake King, who did not take a car out for qualifying. His brother, Max King, that's his older brother, who races Spec Racer Ford Gen 3s in the Sports Car Club of America and races quite a bit on the Super Tour. Both of them from New Jersey. Their father also a noted Formula car racer in SCCA, JD King. But looks like Max will be starting on the second row today.
So Max King will start in 4th place, and just finishing up the rest of qualifying, only a couple drivers left out there. Patry, Miles Crabb, Eric Parker, and it looks like Joaquin Effinger in the 21, in the 700 car. So he's down in 21st place, but that's the only drivers left on the racetrack at the moment. And look down from high above. How about a look at the weather here, Greg? Pretty toasty out there, at least on the track surface today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting as we look at this. I was talking to one of my friends earlier today because I had raced what was called at the time the Double National, but the forebearer to the Super Tour at VIR this very weekend 10 years ago and back in 2010. And it was a heck of a lot hotter than 77 degrees Fahrenheit outside. It was closer to 90 degrees. So track surface, very similar to what we saw at Sebring for this first group. As a matter of fact, the weather is almost identical, Kyle, to what we saw at Sebring just a week ago.
Yeah, and the one thing I've always noticed about VIR and the iRacing simulator in particular, again, every time they model a racetrack, they get the parameters of the surface reflectivity and how much energy it can absorb. So when the track was scanned, this is one of those tracks that absorbs a lot of heat, and 105 is very toasty, but I've seen this track get well over 120, 130, even 140 degrees when the ambient temp rises up a little bit. So I'm expecting to see this track get even hotter as the day climbs up. Just 8 in the morning right now in sim time as we head down down to the racetrack here to get prepared for a very long warm-up lap. Gives you plenty of time to get tires warm and your brakes warm as well.
All right. Well, as they're getting gridded up, and before we run down the starting grid, I wanted to put out a little bit of a tease here, Kyle, because we all know how fun it would be to see the top performers from the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour stack up against other pro drivers who compete today in sim racing. We hear that something like that just might be in the works. SCCA members should be on the lookout for a big announcement on the subject this Tuesday, April 21st, in the weekly SCCA newsletter. It's delivered to the email inboxes by, and I put this in air quotes, Kerry Speed. Something fun is brewing, so keep your eyes peeled for the big news.
So just getting ready to get ready. We got plenty of time around here. The pace lap, it will take us a little while, so we'll wait to show you the exact grid order here. But we do have 25 of our 28 drivers lined up to go racing here, and there goes the 15 car peeling off right inside the pace car there.
Yeah, right into the pace car. You know, a good friend of mine, Mike Collins, was always known for bump drafting the pace car at Summit Point. That's the first time I've actually seen somebody actually make it through to the front seat. That's pretty good. All right, so the cars are now rolling off on this pace lap, and as you mentioned, it is a long way around. I've seen in real life pace laps here at VIR taking upwards of 4 to 5 minutes, depending on the pace of the pace car. So we can see as that happens. And you ready to run down the grid?
Yeah, let's give it a go here, Greg. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, so starting on the front row, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be Max Grau, starting on the outside of the front row, Zach Rivard in the 15 car, Jackson McLeod, the son of Larry, starting third, Max King starting on the outside of the second row in fourth. Then we've got Caleb Patry and Larry McLeod. So McLeod going to be starting a row back, but not back behind his son in sixth. Then we've got Justin Clardy in the 18 car. He'll be starting seventh with Dave Ogburn, the 08 car, starting in eighth. And then we've got Miles Crabb in the number 31 car. He'll be starting ninth. And Steve Ray, who also behind the scenes does quite a bit to make sure that this series goes off well, he'll be starting in 10th. Then we've got Kevin Bubar and Eric Parker, 11th and 12th. Tommy Bordeaux starting 13th today with Suraj Pradhan starting 14th in the 75 car. Then we've got Michael Kinney and Mike Taylor starting 15th and 16th respectively. And then we have Stephen Waller and Alex Jensen. Waller from Texas, Jensen from Ohio. As you can see there on the screen, they're starting 17th and 18th. And then we've got Andrew Wozencroft and David Swig. They'll be starting on the 11th row, 19th and 20th. Then we've got Joaquin Effinger and Pax Rolfe starting 21st and 22nd. As Kyle mentioned, they did not go out for qualifying, nor did Jake King or Kerry Coughlin, starting 23rd and 24th. And then we have Chris Harp and Derek Kulak. Derek Kulak, multi-time national champion in SCCA road racing. He'll be starting 26th. And then we've got Kyle Vallejos and Sam Rolfe, 27th and 28th. And that, I thought that was going to wrap up the field, but we've got one more, and that's Joel Baez. He's going to be rounding out this field, 29 cars, and it should be one heck of a barn burner as we have the pace car now leading the field up past Madison Avenue. That's the little crest at the top of the long back straight here at VIR, and you can see here as the cars make the little bit of a bend through 16 and set up for the top of the roller coaster at 14 and start to make their way down as we get ready for the pace lap. Let's talk real quick as we get ready to take the green flag about Sunoco, the official fuel of the SCCA. For 125 years, Sunoco has been fueling victories on and off the track, which is why Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 years of racing, driving, and winning, including the SCCA National Championship runoffs, SCCA Pro Racing, NHRA, and NASCAR. To find race gas near you, visit www.racegas.com.
Green flag flies, and we're racing in the Hoosier SCCA eSports Super Tour, Greg, and they're rumbling down to turn one, gathering pace.
All right, yes, they are. And as they now come down into turn number 1, we have the 34 car of that is Grau has moved over to driver's right, set up for a traditional entry. Then we've got the number 15 car that has slotted in right behind. And from there, let's take a look here. We've got, looks like 26 cars starting to make their way through. That's Max King. And then we've got the 123, probably the 133 of Larry McLeod. Actually, that's Jackson McLeod in the 133. Larry's in the 33 car. And then we've got Caleb Patry, got shuffled back just a little bit. He's in the number 198 car. Justin Clarity in the 18 running in 6th. As these drivers start to line up and go single file already, it's typical, Kyle, that you're not going to see a lot of fighting once you get past turn 3 on the first lap.
Yeah, I was actually going to take a look at the nose of Larry McLeod's car because he's already picked up a pretty significant amount of damage on that right front fender. Yeah. And I think there's a car that matches. You see Patry, his rear end all smacked in. So I think those two have had a bit of a contact down in turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, looks like that was the issue. And again, going down into the horseshoe there, turns 1 and 2, not uncommon to see cars kind of push wide, especially when they've got cold tires. As we now see the drivers going through that iconic oak tree turn. Now, a lot of the corner workers for the North Carolina region actually refer to it as oak treeless now. Oh. But again, was a beautiful view when you were in the car. As our leaders now making their way up through Madison Avenue, setting up for the quick little left-hander that leads them to the top of the roller coaster. It is still Grau, then Max King, then Zach Rivard, who has made some moves. He's sitting 3rd in the 15 car. Then we've got Jackson McLeod, Caleb Patry, and Larry McLeod sitting in 7th. There's Steve Ray as we follow down in that bright, shiny aluminum liveried car, the number 11, as he comes through Hog Pen onto the front straight. It looks like we had somebody drop off the track there coming out of Hog Pen. And
he's in the middle of the track.
The 15 car. Yeah, he's sitting right in the middle. And that was the 15 car of pardon me.
That's Rivard in the 15.
Zach Rivard, who and he still has not gotten back underway. Let's take a look. And pretty much one of the things we talked about at the lead into the show, Kyle, that it's kind of difficult to get through Hog Pen, especially if you get off the throttle. It looks like he actually locked up the brakes on the way down through there, trying to get the car straightened back out.
Yeah, and he almost had it saved, and then this is where he's going to spin right back on the racetrack, right into the middle of the driving line, and almost had it woe down. And the field did a pretty good job getting around it. The 57 car did an excellent job. That's Tommy Bordeaux. The 66 of Mike Taylor just clipped, and there was a couple more drivers that got hung up in the back.
It looks like Dave Ogburn might have been a part of that in the 08 car. That there are lots of issues there towards the end of the first lap.
Yeah, Max King has gone to the top spot over Max Grau, and if you're noticing at the top of the scoring pile, Eric Parker is going to be shown there, but it's because he just reset back to the pits. So until the leaders cycle back around, he'll be shown at the top of the pylon, but he is out of the race.
Yeah, it looks like his day is done. So we've got Max King and Max Grau, and they are nose to tail now as they come out of Oak Tree, about I'd say about 8 car lengths back from there. We've got Jackson McLeod in the 133 car, but definitely a breakaway at the front of the field now.
Larry McLeod.
And it looks like Larry McLeod in the 33 had some issues. He's just now rejoining, and that's coming right out of Oak Tree. That's right at the entrance, the alternate pit lane over by the South Tower, Kyle.
Yeah, he just spun out at the exit of Oak Tree there, and I think that's kind of a common thing we're going to see throughout the day is people looping it on power, especially in the faster cars later. We're going to see that more when we get into the GT racing later this afternoon. So you got to keep your eye on the throttle pedal as you exit that corner. You mentioned how similar it is to Road Atlanta Turn 7. And I think that's a great comparison, not only in how important it is, but also the design of the corner. It's a very right angle turn with a nasty curb on the inside lane that'll send your car bouncing. So I think drivers, especially the GT4s later today, will have to be paying attention to that.
Yeah, they'll definitely have to keep off the curb at the apex there. I can tell you that the limited slip in my race car certainly was no match for the curbing at the apex of that turn. I had my CRX up on 2 wheels far too many times than I would have liked. All right, we're watching that battle right now between Steve Ray and Miles Crabb, and we've got Kevin Bubar and Justin Clarity right behind, and it looks like Bubar goes off track coming into I guess that's coming into turn 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's turn 2 right there, and he's going to rejoin back in 11th. But this has already been a really high attrition race. We've got about 8 or 9 cars already out of this race, still with 15 minutes to go. But at the front of the field, it's still a 2-horse race here.
Yeah, as both Max King and Max Grau, the two Maxes, really have separated themselves out from the rest of the field. They've got almost a second and a half now on our third-place runner, Jackson McLeod. So big gap there as we see our leaders now coming up through the uphill S's and setting up for South Bend. And as we mentioned, a little big opportunity here for drivers to make passes coming out of South Bend. As you'll find many times, drivers will overslow, and many times they'll overslow in this little section leading into Oak Tree. But again, it's much more important to get a good run out of Oak Tree, and a lot of times attempting a late pass going into the turn can really compromise your speed coming onto the back straight, as it looks like the 34 of Grau got a real good run out of Oak Tree, and he drafted up right behind Max King.
And they're going to push and shove here a little bit. And you mentioned that section between, or right after South Bend leading into Oak Tree. As you come down that corner, you make that first right-hander. I believe that's turn 11 and 12 down there.
Yes.
That little section in between 11 and 12, you have the tendency to kind of let the car roll through there, because it's one of those corners where you can't quite commit back to throttle for very long, but you can't just roll through it because you're going to lose too much speed. So it's a really tricky section to keep momentum through there and not give up a couple tenths or so.
Yeah, it requires a very smooth, very light foot on the gas. You don't want to coast through there, but the challenge you always have is if you get on the throttle a little bit too much, big tendency to wash out wide on the entrance to Oak Tree and lose a lot of speed on exit.
Grau closing right to the rear tailpipes of Max King with 13 minutes to go. So these two continue to battle, but Jackson McLeod last time through was not quicker than the 2 leaders, but he is hanging in close enough. 1.6 seconds is just outside of the drafting range here, but if these two start to battle, McLeod can be right back in this. I think that's why we're seeing Max Grau kind of be very careful about not fighting the 26, and that's why they were so single file on the back straight.
Yeah, exactly. I think I don't think the time to start battling for position has come, and I think they really want to still at this point to try and extend that lead over third place McLeod and not turn it into a 3-car battle for the lead here as they get set up for the uphill S's. As you can see here, somewhat of a late turn in, but also the curbing here as they're going over, as opposed to that curbing at Oak Tree, very, very flat. As a matter of fact, you'll find a lot of drivers actually will use maybe even a little bit more of the curb there. I was talking about how the track was repaved and widened in a couple of different places. Typically, and it wasn't in the uphill S's, but typically here, you'll find where it was widened and maybe there was additional curbing on exit added, was where drivers typically drive over top, completely over top of the curb and into the dirt, like the exit of Oak Tree that we just saw there. Had a big wide patch of dirt. Here as we follow Max Grau, or we watch Max Grau following Max King down the back straight here at VIR, and they get set up for turn 13 and leading into the roller coaster. Well,
you mentioned the curbs, and one of the changes that VIR had made, as you mentioned, was adding that additional curbing, kind of the FIA spec, I guess you can call it the plate style curbing that kind of overlaps each other. They just added that to the outside of the curbs that are still here now. So,
yes.
And now, like you mentioned, it actually widens the track a little bit through the S's, so you can straight line it more in the real world now than you can in the sim. And these curbs, they have a pretty sharp backside. Now that we can climb up onto them relatively okay, but if you catch that backside, it can actually hook the car around. So you have to be a little bit careful, especially in these lighter cars. And the heavier cars later will struggle, because if you get the tires over the edge of that and get the grass, the traction control is going to go haywire and send you off course as well. So you have to pay attention.
Exactly. And so another place where they've made some of those changes is actually coming up right now into NASCAR Bend over at turn 3 on the exit as they come over the curbing here, and we can see the exit at that exit curbing that they just went over. There's actually about another 3.5 feet of runoff there now for the drivers.
So the top two drivers separated by 1.7 seconds. Got to look a little deeper in the field to find a battle. How about Chris Harp and Zach Rivard? So the 15 back rolling. The 36 has quite a bit of damage to that rear fascia there.
Yeah, and again, that was looked like from the battles early on. Well, it was the 15 that had the battles with Larry McLeod, and it looks like, as you mentioned, We've got Chris Harp in the 36 with quite a bit of damage in the rear of that car. But they've got a nice little battle going, and they don't really have to look back behind them all that much. Right now, Andrew Rosencroft in the number 80 car, he's almost 15 car lengths back, and you can see he's had quite a bit of damage, both to the rear and also to the left front. I still find it humorous, Kyle, when I see the fiberglass bodies of these Spec Racer Fords all bent up as though they were made out of aluminum Coke cans.
Someday, again, iRacing's working on a new damage model for all their cars, and someday we'll have the fiberglass acting the proper way, and I can expect that at some point, probably this year or next. So
we'll just see shards of fiberglass flying through the air, and maybe see the whole rear cowling pop off the car, which commonly happens when this has. So we're watching now as our leaders make their way down through the roller coaster, and they get set up here now for Hog Pen, that last turn, which brings you onto the front straight. And when I mentioned that VIR is like a country club for race cars, when you come out of Hog Pen and you see that building there on the on driver's right, just above the pit lane, those are actually apartments, or actually more or less hotel rooms that you can rent at VIR. You can walk from your bedroom right over top of the track and watch racing start right at about 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a great view, and there's another couple of hotel facilities at VIR as well, as we now watch our leaders, the number 26 of King, the number 34 of Grau, make their way through.
You saw the hands of Max King correct all the way, full opposite lock back to driver's right in the left-hand corner. So he's slipping and sliding that car around. Tommy Bordeaux went for a loop back in 17th, so he's rejoined the racetrack in his number 57 car, but had a bit of an off moment. So really our closest battle is the one for the top spot, but Jackson McLeod is still about where he was a couple minutes ago. So that tells me he's got pace to hang out with these front two, even when they're working together. So if he can just hang tight when these guys start to battle in the last lap or two, which is coming up here in the next 5 or 6 minutes, I'm not sure Jackson McLeod is totally out of this fight yet.
No, I don't think he is. As a matter of fact, here just this lap coming out of South Bend, I'm looking a little bit further back in the field, and as they came out of South Bend, he had a really good run, and looked like he actually made up just a bit of ground. And if he keeps getting good exits out of Oak Tree, might have a chance. And here we go. Here's the start of the battle, as we have Max King and Max Grau now side by side, and Grau takes the point in the number 34 car. This is the first time that Max King has not been in the lead since the very first lap, as they now make their way down the roller coaster. And if these battles continue on, and we've got looks like probably about a little bit more than 3 laps to go here. I think you're right. I think there's plenty of time for Jackson McLeod to present himself.
How about Larry McLeod in the number 33? Had some damage early, started in 6th, has drifted back to 9th, and now he has the 75 all over the rear bumper of him right now.
Yeah, that's Suraj Padam, which is sitting right behind him now, as they make their way down through Hog Pen and onto the front straight. McLeod gets a little bit better run, but with Padam so close behind, I'm pretty confident that he'll be able to draft right back up before they get down into the braking zone. And you can see here, it looks like he's going to attempt to try to get alongside of McLeod going into 1. McLeod really over to driver's right, really compromising his entry into turn 1. But Pradham he didn't really have anywhere to go for an over-under, and looks like he might have even lost a little bit of ground on the exchange there.
Yeah, it didn't work out quite the way you wanted. I find that turns 1 and 2 at VIR, you have to really keep it tight down there. There's a nasty bump in at least the iRacing scan version between turns 1 and 2, that if you hug the inside, it's really rough, but it seems to be a little bit better to your car to hang a little bit tight on that inside lane. Meanwhile, back up at the front here, Greg, we got 5 minutes to go and a little bit more than that. Look at the 34 dropping his right sides off in South Bend as they head to Oak Tree here.
Yeah, Grau's, I don't want to say he's getting sloppy, but definitely I think watching his mirrors maybe a little bit more than he was before, and not so tidy coming out of South Bend as they now make their way down the long back straight here at Virginia International Raceway, going up through Madison Avenue. The little cutout that we have right about here is what they call Madison Avenue, and then they're going to head up and crest over the top of the hill, make a quick little run down towards turn 13 and set up for the roller coaster. As you can see here, lots and lots of elevation change, not only on the straightaways here, but as the cars start to make their way and our leaders make their way down the roller coaster. It is a huge, huge drop off over by a really a place at the real VIR where a number of spectators watch the action.
4 minutes to go. This time by, it'll be about 3 laps left. It's the estimated laps remaining on my timing and scoring. So 3 laps to go. Nose to tail, the top 2. Jackson McLeod now 1.7 back. He was a 10th quicker than both the leaders last time through, and no one else behind was any quicker. So it's going to be between these front 3 and probably just these front 2, as long as they can keep that 133 at bay. Take a look at the weather real quick, see if it's increased at all. Look at the track surface now there, Greg. 115 as we get a little bit later in the day, and the sun is baking that racetrack and making it hotter and slicker as we go on.
Yeah, you're seeing a 10-degree increase in in track surface, with only a 2-degree increase in ambient temperature. So as you mentioned, the track here really soaks up the heat, and it definitely makes for a very slick racetrack at the end as our leaders make their way through Snake, and we can see Max Grau trying to use every little piece of the pavement and even some of the dirt on the side in order to straighten out that Snake section there, in order to get as much speed as he can on the run through the uphill S's here, and make their way as our drivers now light touch of the brakes and will make their way through South Bend. And again, that huge drop off coming out of South Bend, and a little hard to see, or you could see the drop out of South Bend. A little bit harder to see is the compression, because almost as quickly as you come down out of South Bend, you start rising back up to make it towards that Oak Tree turn, and it's a little disconcerting, but it definitely helps with the braking as they head into Oak Tree.
A little bit of a run down the back straight now as they've separated. Jackson McLeod had a bit of an issue, and he's dropped way back, 5 seconds between him and Max King. But a little bit deeper in the field, Steve Ray and Miles Crabb, they're nose to tail out of Oak Tree, as is McLeod and Pradon in the 75. And they're also bringing, that's the 10 car into the mix. That's David Swig. He is a lap down.
Swig. I was going to say, it looked like Swig is a lap down there. They've just gotten by him. But with just about 2.5 minutes to go as we watch this battle, we'll get back to our leaders, Grau and King, and they should be coming up on some slower traffic here, I believe, in just a moment. We'll have to see when they reach him. We can see that, and they may not get to him. Yeah, it's going to be close. They may not get to him before the end of the race, as our leaders are now locked nose to tail. And now we've got Max King steps to the outside. Grau gets a little defensive. Then Grau moves back over. Drivers left to defend, and King is content to follow him through here with probably have one more chance at it going into turn 1 if he needs it. But they are coming up on, it looks like the number, is that the number 37 car, I believe, that they're coming up on? It's either the 37 or the 27. That might be the 27 of Parker. Well, and with that, Parker pulls all the way over to drivers left to let our leaders by, because the next place that they probably would have gotten to him is Snake going under the bridge and setting up through the S's, which is would have made things a lot more difficult for our leaders.
So I'm really wondering if this is white flag, because they came across the line with like about 2 minutes and 13 seconds left. They just ran a 2:12.2. It's going to be awful close. The drivers will know right now if they have a white flag. We will not know until they come out of the final corner whether or not it's going to be white flag or checkers this time through. So I think what Max King does is going to tell us if it's white or if it's still 2 to go, because he'll make a pass or try to make one on the back straight if it is white flag.
Yeah, and we'll have to see here as they come down the back straight. We'll see as they now come out of Oak Tree, and this is where King is going to want to be right up on the back of our leader Max Grau in the 34 car. And we'll see if Grau takes more to the center of the track versus moving all the way drivers right. And it looks like he is staying there, drivers left, to try to impede King as they enter that quick little bend before the top of the roller coaster. But then we'll see if King is going to try to outbrake Grau going into the top of the roller coaster. It's where we many times will see cars drive off right off the end of the track, and it doesn't happen this time. And I'll tell you, it's going to be close. But looking at the way Grau was covering King on that back straight, I tend to believe we may be we may be coming up on the checkered flag, and it's a long way down that front straight before our drivers get there.
No, it's going to be close. 5 seconds left. I think this is going to be white flag this time through. As they come to the line, is it going to be checkers or white this time through?
It's a white flag. They got one more to go.
Wow, that came down. If they had lifted just a little bit, or if Grau had lifted off out of hog pen there, they would have been coming to the checkers. But big dive into turn one. Grau runs wide, and King tucks it in tight to the inside. A bobble by the 34, and looks like King's going to go on through to the lead.
And yeah, it looks like he's nose up right now, but Grau has position going into NASCAR, and he's able to get up right alongside Max King, and they're going to come through NASCAR, set up side by side for left hook. Left hook, a very slow, very tight 90-degree turn. Grau gets it, and he turns in maybe a little earlier than he wanted to, but it allowed him to cover the pavement there and keep King behind as they now make their way through Snake, Kyle.
Here they come up the S's. This is a single file area of racetrack, but they might try double wide here. Here they go up the hill. White flag, about 3 miles left to go, maybe a little bit less than that. Grau's going to hug the inside and all these apexes, hammer the curbs, and now King's just thinking about where can I set this up? Maybe through hog pen here or at the end of the lap, or maybe he'll try it at the end of the back straight. But down towards Oak Tree they go there, Greg.
Yeah, and as they come out of South Bend now, King doesn't have the run on Grau, so he's going to have to sit back here. And again, what he's going to want to do is he's going to want to get up as close to Grau as he can on exit to get a run. But he's maybe even another half a car length back from where he was just last lap. And you can already see Grau starting to put in the bob and weave here on the back straight, and he maybe started it a little bit early. I think that initial move that he made actually allowed King to get up right beside him as he is right now, and he made up a lot more ground. So let's see here as King now takes the lead momentarily, and Grau's going to follow him into the top of the roller coaster.
Down the roller coaster for the final time, Max King with a textbook pass at the end of the back straight. Only a couple corners left. We'll see if Grau can respond.
Yeah, it was really surprising there, Kyle, as Grau made that first initial move coming out of Oak Tree that I would have expected him to keep the run up and increase speed, but he kind of just scrubbed it away there. As Max King, followed by Max Grau, comes down the front straight, crosses the stripe. Our winner today is going to be Max King, with Grau finishing second, Jackson McLeod taking the third step on the podium for the first race of the eSports Super Tour here from VIR.
And coming back to the checkers, Larry McLeod will finish in 7th, even with all that damage. And the last driver in the top 10 will be Kevin Bubar in the blue car at the back of your shot here. Here he comes around it up. Mike Taylor and Michael Kinney in the 66 and 12 cars, respectively. A couple seconds behind that. There's a few more stragglers at the tail end of the lead lap here, Greg. But what a battle for the lead, and what a textbook pass by Max King.
Yeah, that was he had the opportunity. It was given to him more or less on a silver platter, and he was able to draft up right alongside Max Grau on the back straight here at VIR. And you know, I'll tell you, if we get a chance to talk to Max, I'll bet you he didn't expect to have that handed right to him that early on the back straight, because he really, I mean, he made his intentions known, and Max Grau more or less put him in a position to make the move.
Well, we don't have Max King available, but I do see Max Grau, so maybe we can pull in him and have a little chat here. We'll see. Yeah. We can pull him in. Hey, Max Grau, you got a copy? Doesn't look like it, so looks like we won't have anybody available for interview here, Greg, but I guess we'll read through the finishing order here, jump to break, and we'll move on to the next one.
Sounds good. So as you can see, our winner today, Max King, Max Grau in the 34 car. Second, Jackson McLeod finishes in third. Caleb Patry worked his way back up. He's going to finish fourth. Miles Crabb fifth. Steve Ray, as I believe you mentioned, Kyle, takes the 11 car home in sixth, followed by Larry McLeod, who made his way back, had a good finish there after dropping back after a first lap incident. He finishes seventh, and Justin Clarity eighth. Suraj Pradham finishes in ninth. Kevin Bubar 10th. Mike Taylor, then Mike McKinney. Zach Rivard finishes 13th. Chris Harp 14th. Then we've got Stephen Waller, Andrew Rosencroft. Then we've got Joaquin Effinger, Alex Jensen, Pax Rolfe, and Eric Parker will come home in 20th.
All right, so I think that's going to wrap up the SRFs here, Greg. So we got Larry back in the booth. Larry, 7th place. How'd they go? We saw some damage on your car. That happened down there in turns 1 and 2?
Yeah, actually, the accordion on 3 that really started it. I don't know if it was Justin in front of me, got in the back of Caleb in front of him, and that just kind of started it. Yeah, it didn't really go well from there. And then at some point, I had a spin at that oak tree and just clawed my way back up, and I think I caught Justin there on the last lap because he had some damage and obviously wasn't at full song. And yeah, so tough from back there, but I mean, the front guys were just flying, and they're obviously working together to try and hold off Jackson. They were actually chatting to each other to say, hey, let's not let Jackson catch us, and they did really well to make sure they finished 1-2. It's a good job on them. They were fast.
Yeah, they're pretty much right out of the gate, actually coming right out of turns 1 and 2 on the very first lap. They really started to separate themselves out from Jackson, and made sure not to really start battling until they had Kyle, about 4 laps to go. I think was the first time we saw any kind of real aggression from either one of those drivers. But great race, as you mentioned. And now that we've got Larry back, Kyle, want to thank you, of course, and we'll hear again from you a little bit later today. And as we get set up, I believe our next race up is going to be the touring race. We're going to have the T1 and T2 classes, the Porsche Caymans in T1, the Ford Mustangs in T2. It was a great battle there. And before we go and take a break, I just want to thank one of our sponsors, one of the SCCA sponsors, and that is Tire Rack. Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago with a product line that fulfills the tire, wheel, suspension, and brake needs of enthusiasts and their friends for both the track and the road. As the official tire retailer of the SCCA and title sponsor of the SCCA National Solo Program, Time Trials National Tour, and Time Trials Nationals, TireRack.com, America's leading high-performance tire and wheel source, is able to showcase a broad range of new products in suspension, brakes, and accessories while supporting the grassroots motorsports enthusiasts. All right, so Kyle, why don't we take a quick break, and we'll get ready for our next group. You are listening to the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour from Virginia International Raceway.
'51's Video Network.
Name's Chris Engel. That's the car. It's basically just your standard average everyday Viper with a few ACR-esque components on it. I've been doing this a long time. I've got about 100,000 track miles. Been with SCCA since 2000, I guess, and started time trialing with you guys a couple years ago. Won the Time Trial Nationals at Corvette Museum. Got the entry fee paid, got a set of tires paid. Drove 1,000 miles out here to Austin, Texas for COTA, and here we are. Some of the cars here are just absolutely insane. I mean, wings that, mine look, compared to the craziness that are here. I came up in the road racing aspect, so I did a lot of schools before then, and I got to the point where I was doing enough schools to where I said, okay, I've got enough skills, started making enough money to where I could prep. At the time I had a Corvette, did a whole lot of road racing, and got into time trials with you guys. Definitely SCCA has a lot of qualifying schools, and the secret is seat time, seat time, seat time. You just simply cannot get enough track time.
Do you have to have a Viper to make it?
No, God, no. You should see some of the cars here. I mean, I think there was it wasn't a Yugo, it was some kind of funky thing, but it is a huge splitter on the front, great big wing on the back, and he's just out there having a blast. So no, don't need one of these crazy things. Wherever somebody's hosting a track event, be it time trial, schools, whatever it is, get your car to the track, pay the entry fees, get you a decent set of tires, good set of Carbotech brakes, and go pound on it.
All right, and we are back with the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour. I'm Greg Ginsberg, and fresh off of his
Fantastic performance. Oh,
yes, yeah, we've got.
It was fun.
Yeah, of
As
course.
always.
We've got Larry McLeod, so and Larry will be with us for the next race here. And as we mentioned before the break, this is our touring race. We have two different classes that are running. In this group, we're going to have the T1 class, which are made up of Porsche Cayman GT4 cars, and then we've got the T2 class made up of the Ford Mustangs. Should be and this was a pretty darn good battle, especially in the Cayman class well, not the Cayman class, but the T1 class at Sebring last week. So good, in fact, that we saw our two leaders taken out, partway through the race.
It was still a good battle, but I think today, assuming our leaders can get through turn 4, is going to be an even better battle because that talent can be in there, and you can see by the order of the qualifying so far, Tom O'Gorman, DJ Alessandrini are right back at the top of that leader ticker. With Paul Darling, Evan Schickel, Ken O'Seal, this is going to be an awesome battle, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it should be good. And of course, we saw that great T2 battle with the Ford Mustangs last week as well. The standout was Danny Richardson and I think, well, that's not Richardson, that's the number 91 car, but Richardson in the 15 car. I'll have to see if he's out here running once again. Yeah, he's driving the number 18 car. There he is in the blue and purple car. Making his way down the back straight. I was taking a look also to see. I was warned that we should be on the lookout for Peyton Johnson. We'll have to see if he made the field today. And I'm scrolling through to see if he's there. I don't see him. Yeah. Oh yeah, Peyton Johnson did make it. He's in the number 48 car. I don't think he's on track now, or he might just be rejoining the track. Peyton is actually the North Carolina region of the SCCA's. He is their flag chief's assistant, and he's only 16 years old. He's also put in a lot of time as a flagger for North Carolina region races, including the national championship runoffs this past October. So he's putting in some time behind the wheel of a car right now. Yeah, and he knows it quite well. There he is right now in the number 48 Porsche Cayman. That's a GT1 car. Yep. Apparently sponsored by his Simrig or his wheel manufacturer. I would have thought to have the big VIR logo sitting all over the side of it.
He's got it on there somewhere.
Yeah, and sitting right behind him in the Valvoline car, I believe that's Tom O'Gorman.
Tomo, yep, in the number 194.
Yeah, so Tom, as we mentioned, sitting right up towards the top of the leaderboard right now. He's your second fastest car on track. Currently about 4,500 back from DJ Alessandrini. Of course, he's driving the Valvoline colors. I think we mentioned last week that he is now a sponsored eSports driver from Valvoline, and we'll have to see if that means anything for the SCCA going forward. And speaking of maybe not going forward, we have a car that just went off track right behind
going
him.
sideways.
Yeah, going sideways. All right, we've got Andrew Pilata here. You can see on track in the Mission Mustang, and not driving that you would typically see happen.
Letting somebody die. That's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, pull it over there.
This is qualifying, and what I'm seeing a lot of is drivers being courteous to each other. We had our Tuesday fun night, we had our Thursday fun night, and drivers are learning quickly of what the right etiquette is for on-track etiquette for qualifying sessions. Of, hey, I'm on a flyer, I'd like to pass through. If you're not on a flyer, I'm just going to scoot over here, let you on through. But if I'm on the flyer next time, you let me through. And you're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's good. It's part of being fun and courteous. And that's actually how SCCA qualifying does it for regular majors and Hoosier Tour events. So it's acting its way out here in the virtual world.
Yeah, there we go. We're watching Ryan Christoph in the number 46 Honda Racing or Honda Performance Development Ford Mustang, also the Grid Life and Christoph Racing Ford Mustang. There, you can see even on the door marked is GTL. Yeah, of course, Ryan races a Honda CRX, a first-gen Honda CRX in GT Light. He's spending some time today behind the wheel of the Mustang, which is maybe a little bit
different.
Yeah, just a little different, and he's
on the throttle, I suspect.
Yeah, and you could actually see there as he came out of NASCAR with the rear end kind of stepping out. He's sitting right behind Peyton Johnson's Porsche Cayman. We were looking at Peyton a little bit earlier, and now we are. And earlier during your qualifying, I was talking about how drivers will try to straight line through Snake as much as possible, and I think Ryan Christoph just showed us exactly how you do that, and that's by going all four wheels in the grass as you come out of turn 5.
So those that watch the Spec Ford race, those cars, we try to set them up to work with the curbs, and it took pretty much the entire week. Like I was probably, I can't even tell you how many hours I put in, and I'll just, pull the curtain back a little bit. Put a lot of time to try and make a setup work for Jackson and I this week to make it work so you could pound curbs knowing that a straight line's faster than weaving. These cars, these touring cars, are naturally just good at it. They will straight line things, they will hop curbs all over the place, coming down roller coaster, going through the lower and upper S's, going through turns 3 and 4, they'll hop curves. So you're going to see a lot of that today, and it won't upset the cars. So that's more or less how they behave.
Exactly, and most of the curbing that we see here on this iteration of Virginia International Raceway, with the exception of the apex at Oak Tree, really fairly flat, and most of the touring cars will soak them up. Cars that have a lot of suspension travel will soak them up pretty easily. So real quick, as we have just about 30 seconds left to go in the qualifying, I'm going to run down the top 5 in each class. DJ Alessandrini currently in the number 13 Porsche Cayman. He is your T1 leader. Tom O'Gorman, 0.27 of a second back from there in the number 194 car. Then we've got Paul Darling, Evan Schickel, and Ken Husiel in the number 33 car and the 23 car, respectively. That is your top 5. And interestingly enough, just about, if we look here, just about 1 second separating our top 5 in that class. And then in the T2 class, our Ford Mustangs, Andrew Pilata, currently fastest driver with a fast lap of a 2:03.3. Then Ryan Field in the number 91 car. Looks like somebody's going for the wild ride there. That's the 87 of Mark Srivastava. Let's see. So Ryan Field, second fastest right now, 0.17 of a second back. Then Kyle Herbst in the 89 car, third fastest. Mark Srivastava, who we just got to watch, he is your 4th fastest driver in qualifying in T2. And then Ryan Christoph, who we also followed earlier today, in the 46th, fastest.
I see another name down there, just beyond Christoph's name in the T2. That would be Billy Davis, running in the Coca-Cola car. Yes, that's the same Billy Davis that we're going to see in the next race running in the Skippies, as he's jumped into a second class here this week in the running in the T2 Mustangs. So cool to see him trying out a different vehicle. A couple others that we see maybe that we hadn't seen in previous weeks. If I look up, we got Frank Schwartz this week running in one of the Porsche Caymans. He'll be running in the T1.
Yeah, he's normally a B-Spec driver.
Yep, I see Ryan Otis, who ran the Cadillac, I believe, in the first week at Road Atlanta. He'll be running in the Caymans here in T1.
And we have Tiger Tom Patton, who will also be running in the Porsche Caymans. A little further in the field, of course, we mentioned Danny Richardson. We also have David Sanders in one of the Ford Mustangs, who has quite a bit of Mustang experience, and Robert Corzin, who not so much Mustang experience, more on the Dodge and Plymouth side for Robert Corzin. Another interesting name to pop up. Brad Adams, who I believe is, I think he's more known for spending time at the gym and superimposing his face in funny memes than anything else. But actually, he's a very good Honda Civic driver. I know he put some time in with Grid Life and also with that other organization that we won't mention, as the checkered flag ending the qualifying session is now being shown.
And of course, one of the finishers that ran, we had a fun race last week, was Jeff Jacobs from the SCCA Foundation. He's there running again this week in the Mustangs here in T2. Currently, I believe it's 7th on the grid, just behind Billy Davis. So we'll see if that stands as their flying laps will wind up here. So one of the things that we know that the drivers have been clarified that we saw last week that shouldn't be an issue this week is going to be these starts. This was practice again on Thursday night with the multiple classes. The lead class will take the safety car start. They will go on the green lights. The second class, the pole sitter, will in fact control the field, and the pole sitter will control the start after they come off a hog pen and a cross start finish. So that's going to make for a pretty interesting run down to turn one, because obviously, Larry, they're not going to be at full speed as if they were completing a lap, but they're going to have that entire front straight in order to pick up speed going down into turn one. That's something that the T1 cars aren't going to have. It'll depend on that start. So what we did on Thursday night, because I ran all 3 races Thursday night. I ran in the first race where we had the Miatas, the Skippys, and the Spec Fords. I was in the Spec Fords, and we were the 3rd class to take that green. The pole sitter actually said, guys, I'm going to call the green, which is actually kind of a cool thing, because that way it was fair to everybody. He didn't just go, we had to watch. He waited until we were probably about pit in, which is about the same place that the safety car peels off before he went. So it was a very fair way. I don't know exactly how they're going to do it here. I suspect it'll be at least after they come off the hog pen. They're not going to do it on the last apex. They'll probably wait just a little longer before they let them free, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah. All right. So we've got the cars. They are gridding up, still gridding up, but as opposed to our first group where we had, about 25 cars, we do have a full field of 50 cars, and that is one of the changes that we did make this week with some updates from iRacing. We've been able to bump up the size of the field, so we have a maximum of 50 cars running as opposed to the previous 40 at Sebring and Atlanta and Road Atlanta. So why don't we start running down the grid here, Larry?
All right, so I'll run through the T1s real quick, and then I'll hand it over to you probably for the T2s. So on the front row for T1, you got DJ Alessandrini. He wants revenge for last week, and he's looking to get that over his buddy Tom O'Gorman, who's on the outside of row 1. Row 2 consists of Paul Darling and Evan Schickel. Row 3 will be Ken Hausiel and Sam Scott. Row 4, man, it seems to be in all the races and all these events, Ido Waxman and Tony Chow alongside of him. Row 5 is going to be William Teller and Ismail Basso. Row 6, Dennis Barrett and David Marcus. Row 7, the main man Ryan Otis will be alongside Michael Borden.
My main man.
You like that?
Otis, he loves us.
Got to throw a little bit of Animal House in there. That was on row 7. Row 8, James Colson and Elivan Goulart. You know, I should know that because he runs Spec Miata.
And he's also a national champion in Spec Miata.
Yes, he is. In row 9, Simon Asselin and Frank Schwartz, of course. In row 10, Michael Ogren and Jacob Abrams. Row 11, Donald Manning and Dan Bullis. In row 12, John Redwine out of my home region, Saginaw Valley. He's alongside Peyton Johnson, we talked about earlier. Tiger Tom Patton, he's going to be alongside Eric Santini on row 13. Rob DeLuca alongside Derek Kulak in row, whatever that is, I'm losing count, 15.
It's a ways back. Yep. We'll just go from there.
Yep, Juan Vento And be alongside, looks like somewhere back here will be Alan Claffey and Jacob Bessemer winding out the T1 field.
All right, so now hopefully we'll get up to our T2 field with the Ford Mustangs, and I'm going to have to read this off the screen here. Unfortunately, I'm not as good with the timing and scoring system as.
In iRacing, you can click at the top as an arrow and give you the T1, T2, and the overall.
Hey, we can do that.
On the fly.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's see if we can.
I'm going to enjoy the landscapes of VIR here on my screen. It looks so good. It really is. I feel like we were just there in October, and I feel like I was just there last weekend now. It's so gorgeous.
All right, so let's go here, and we'll run down the field. And actually, I still haven't been able to do it. Larry, why don't you pick up the T2 field?
Not a worry. All right, front row. Andrew Pilata alongside Ryan Field on the outside. Second row, Paul Slavonic and Kyle Herbst. On the third row, Mark Shrivastava and Ryan Kristoff. On the fourth row, it's going to be, for fifth row, I guess, I can't count, Billy Davis and Jeff Jacobs. We'll just go next.
Oh, I got it now.
You got it?
I got it now.
All right, so you can pick up after Jeff Jacobs.
All right, so we got Zach Sainz in the number 39 car, starting right beside Danny Richardson in the number 18. Then we've got Mark Surevich in the number 25 car with David Santel right beside. Then we've got Brad Adams, we talked about just before, with David Sanders. JG Pasterjak from Grassroots Motorsports will be starting right beside Robert Corzin. Then we've got Michael Nienhaus in the number 12 car next to James Catherine, and pulling up the tail of the field today, William Collins. Bill Collins in the number 63, and Bill Collins, I should know, is also
the American flag Corvette, right?
Yeah, the American flag Chevy Corvette, usually both in T1 and T2. But let's get ready for the start now as Alessandrini and Tom O'Gorman make their way down the front straight, and the green flag is in the air, ready for the start.
They are slow and waiting on DJ's move. There they go. This is going to be tight. No one lining up single file. This is going to be a bit of chaos.
Make his way down the center here, and you know, this is where I mentioned you don't necessarily want to be caught all the way to the outside, but we have cars that have gone off, and that might be Peyton Johnson. No, we'll see. That's one of the two Logitech cars. We'll have to track and see if that's Johnson. We just saw a car go flying through the air, and we've got a big pile up here now down at turn 1. It looks like the number 70 car was involved. That is the number 28 car of Ryan Otis sitting on his roof. Wouldn't expect him to continue. Then we've got, if we jump back to the lead, it is still DJ Alessandrini, followed by Tom O'Gorman as we get ready for the start here of the T2 race with the Ford Mustangs. And it is Pilata and let's see here.
Yeah, at least the front single file.
Yeah, Pilata and Ryan Field, 1-2 coming
cleaner
out of turn 2. Yeah, much cleaner. Followed by Slavonic, Herbst, and Shrivastava.
A little contact back there, but not so bad. No flipping, it didn't look like.
All right, we're jumping back over to our T1 races. They're coming now down out of Oak Tree, Larry.
All right, so they come up Madison Avenue, a little single file with DJ leading O'Gorman, but it's pretty tight among those top 6.
Yeah, it looks like Darling's been able to draft right up to the back of O'Gorman as Alessandrini now has opened up almost maybe an 8 or 9 car length lead as he comes up to the top of the roller coaster and starts to make his way down. But once you get back to Tom O'Gorman, you then have very tight running there with Darling, Schickel, Husil, and Sam Scott as well.
Yeah, and these guys better not let DJ pull away. He's very fast in these cars, but so is O'Gorman. Tom got a pretty good run there coming up a hog pen. He's going to try and make up some ground, but he's going to have to definitely work with Darling behind him.
Yeah, and look at this now as our T2 race makes their way down the long back straight of VIR for the very first time. We've got, looks like Andrew Pilata, Ryan Field, Kyle Herbst, in a huge lineup here. It's actually going all the way back. Looks to be all the way back to about 8th place. We've got Shrivastava, Kristoff, Davis, Jacobs, Zach Sainz in that train as well. And I think Danny Richardson might be sitting right at the tail end of it. So already good clean running in his, as you mentioned, much cleaner start for the T2 races. Just as I say that, yeah, we've got cars run wide. That's Zach Sainz in the 39 car. He was running just ahead of Danny Richardson, and looks like he's now been able to continue. The advantage here, Larry, of course, if you go off, nothing with many of the turns, nothing to hit, just lots of grass that you have to wind your way through.
Yeah, and that's the issue down there coming up a hog pen is it goes off camber, and if you get into that grass, it just carries you all the way to the outside. And luckily in iRacing, they don't simulate the springtime wetness to that grass. We had seen a year ago, if you remember, and it carried people all the way to the woods, just way out there. So, but it will definitely carry you, and it's hard to get back without spinning the cars.
All right, so let's look at the battle here. This is the battle for 10th in T1, where we've got Simon Sellen, we've got Mike Ogren, Dennis Barrett, Dave Marcus, all very closely packed as they make their way now down and coming in over towards the top of the roller coaster and making their way down to complete lap 2.
Yeah, watching that battle there, it looks like I think it's that Ogren is the third one in the shot there. Looked a little bit impatient coming up. Yeah, he looked impatient there on the back of that threesome. Just wanted to kind of get around as they came up to the top of the roller coaster. But that's what it takes here, is you got to be patient if you want to move faster as a pack. Because they space themselves out down the front straight now. Oh, contact now in the back of Barrett.
Yeah, so we have Barrett going off, and he goes, and that's one of the places where you do have tire walls fairly close, right up heading towards the top of the entrance to Oak Tree. And so he's gone around now, and looks like...
I think it was turn 1.
Oh, actually, you're right. I'm sorry. That was over at turn 1.
Yep.
So he should be able to continue on.
All right, this is for the lead.
All right, look at this. We now
That's
have
Tomo
side-by-side. Yeah, side-by-side going into the S's there, O'Gorman and Alessandrini, and O'Gorman takes the point from Alessandrini now as they make their way through South Bend, heading down into that compression, setting up for Oak Tree. And looks like Alessandrini...
You can really see the classic Oak Tree, which unfortunately isn't there anymore, but what a shot is. You can see them just on that knife's edge, rounding that. And Tom getting a great run off of there, but DJ is going to stick with him, and they're going to have to do this for a while, but that train is just not going anywhere.
No, and it looks like Alessandrini got a little bit better jump out of Oak Tree than Ken Husil did, but Husil able to keep close primarily because of the draft, and Paul Darling, who had a great race going at Sebring last weekend, also he's sitting back in 4th currently with Evan Schickel pretty close behind as well.
Yeah, this is really turning into kind of a front foursome as Schickel and Guido Waxman have kind of fallen just a hair behind them. We'll see if that continues with this Husil Darling kind of wrapping up the front 4. Let's see if DJ makes a move down inside of Tom here into 1. Just sticking behind him.
Yeah, he's just kind of sitting back there waiting, and again with 3rd position so close behind with Husil sitting right back there, I don't think Alessandrini is all too keen to start going side by side into some of these very heavy braking turns like turn 1 as they now make their way out of turn 2 into turn 3. And there we've got Tiger Tom Patton off track. And that is coming out of Hogpen onto the front straight.
Peyton Johnson too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Peyton Johnson, the folks from the North Carolina region, probably not so happy now that I pointed Peyton out here. But looking every much the 16-year-old driver now as he gets back on track and makes his way down towards turn 1. He loses a couple positions in the process. But here we go, coming out of the S's and now going into South Bend. You can see a little bit of a tap on the brakes.
Yeah, for the folks that have not driven this either in iRacing or for real, in real life, as they say, that South Bend is such a hard corner. It's one of the hardest corners that I've tried to drive in all the sim racing I've done. To just throw that thing on the knife's edge, and in the Spec Ford, it's about a 96, 98 mile an hour corner that goes off camber, and the bottom just drops out of it, and these cars are even faster around there. It is so difficult, and to do it in close proximity with another car, it just speaks volumes to how good car control these guys have. And here's DJ making a move, but not going to make it stick.
Yeah, as they come through the quick little bend there before the top of the roller coaster, and Alessandrini just not quite close enough up alongside. And and Larry, as you were talking about South Bend and how challenging it is, I think one of the other pieces of that has to do with your entry to those high-speed uphill S's. And if you turn in just even a touch early at the beginning of those S's, it's going to push your car wide. Drivers left on the exit of that turn, and when you're doing 105, some of these cars are doing 135 heading towards South Bend, it's really very difficult to get your car back over drivers right and get set up for that sweeping left-hand South Bend without sending the car down through the grass.
Yeah, it really is. It speaks volumes to the driver skill and the precision it takes. It doesn't seem like much, but one little inch off at the start of a whole sequence, and it just carries and it starts to amplify as you get to the end of these oscillations. These lower S's are one piece. This is basically a straightaway for these guys. You get to the upper ones, and it's very rhythmic.
Exactly. And a matter of fact, having run this track, the 13-hour race that they had for many years here at Virginia International Raceway, and again in a much slower car, I think the rhythm through those uphill S's is spot on. Even in a slower Honda CRX with very little light to show my way, I was basically counting in my head 1,000, 2 1,000, and then you have a little bit of an input to a wheel, 1,000, 2 1,000, you go back the other direction, 1,000, 2 1,000, you come back again. And speaking of coming back again, let's jump back over to our T2 race, as we've been following the T1 race for a while, and we're looking at Mark Shrivastava. He is sitting right behind Ryan Christoph now as they make their way through, making their way through Snake there. Christoph currently running in fourth, right off the podium. Shrivastava fifth, Kyle Herbst sixth, as we have Frank Schwartz, who was our pole sitter in B-Spec this year at the National Championship runoffs. So it's not like he doesn't know the track. He had issues there going off at South Bend.
Yes, it does. There you go. You can see it right here. It gets a little late through these upper S's. Just touches the grass on the left, sends him right, and that's a long way. It's downhill, and it's just impossible to come back. It's
downhill coming off of South Bend, and then you go back uphill to try and regain. But that's exactly what I was talking about there, is you saw his car all the way driver's left on the exit of the uphill S's, and you actually want to be closer to the center of the track when you exit out of there. All right, so now coming out of turns 10 and 11 through the Oak Tree turn, and we're watching again that battle with Ryan Christoph, Mark Shrivastava, Kyle Herbst, and right behind Herbst we've got Billy Davis as well, and we'll start to see things close up just a little bit here. But what I'd really like to see in this group, and we'll stick with Kyle Herbst here for a second, is what, if any, changes we have under braking going into 14, and we see if we have anybody really try to make up some ground here. And we can see Herbst almost gets right into the back of Mark Shrivastava at the top of the roller coaster.
Almost too good.
Yeah, I mean, much harder, much later on the brakes than Shrivastava. Shrivastava kind of just had, kind of eased his way into the throttle there. Now, again, after that very long straightaway, it's a very heavy braking turn, and the tendency for a lot of drivers is to brake hard and brake late and slide right off the end. As we go back once again to the battle for the lead in T1, as we now have coming down through the roller coaster, it's Tom O'Gorman and DJ Alessandrini, and again Ken Husil in the number 23 Porsche. He's just not giving up the ghost. He's hounding all over the back of Alessandrini as well. But it looks like Alessandrini is just kind of shuffling the car around, trying to move the car around and let the and maybe get into Tom's head a little bit.
We've reached the stage now, and you can see as Tom's flashing the lights, DJ's flashing the lights, they're starting to reach the back of the T2s. Now, not only are they battling, they're going to be hitting some of this lap traffic. Let's see how they manage it and how easily the traffic moves aside to let this force them through, or does they somehow get broken up? Because that's the problem with this scan of VIR is actually narrower than the real scan that we have, the real track as it is today, especially in this section. Turns 3 and especially 3, they've paved this whole apron to the driver's right. It doesn't exist here in this in sim, making this an extremely narrow track. So if somebody doesn't move aside for you, forget it, you're going to be stuck behind them. Luckily, that car was able to. But you can see here now, again, this foursome that's just pulling away. I'm just wondering what's going through Houseel and Darling, knowing, okay, well, we've got about 5 more laps of this. How long do I want to sit back here before, if you're Darling, you got to get by Houseel before you can interrupt DJ. How long do you want to sit and wait?
All right, and as our leaders now come through South Bend and make their way over towards and back up the hill towards Oak Tree, they're going to start running into some more lap traffic. I was looking, we've got a pretty good group of about 5 or 6 cars here, and that's actually I don't think that's the lead, but we've got a group of our T2 cars making their way up towards the top of the roller coaster now. And that is going to really present some issues for our T1 leaders, as they now will have to make their way through multiple cars. As once again, Alessandrini side by side with O'Gorman. O'Gorman's going to have the position going in, and they touch, and they both go around Hoosiel.
Around them. Darling is through.
And Darling sneaks on through. I thought that was going to get Hoosiel for a second there as well, but he gathers it back up and takes to the grass for a moment there. So we have a new leader in T1. It's Ken Hoosiel in the number 23 car. Paul Darling is your second place runner. Wow. And I think in tracking things, I think Ida Waxman has managed to get around.
So here's the replay. They go into braking, and Tom's on the inside. He's got the line. DJ's on the outside. Tom gets,
but you'll notice here, and you'll notice here that
Tom doesn't stay on the curb on the inside, and DJ assumed that he would.
Yeah, Hoosiel gave him a car width and nothing more, no extra ground there as he came down, and you can see from where O'Gorman was,
I think DJ didn't give him more room.
Yeah, I think perhaps a slightly later turn in from Alessandrini might have allowed both those drivers to get through.
I think so.
He turned in, and to the point where he turned in, there really wasn't any way for O'Gorman to navigate that corner.
Yeah. Okay, so let's turn our attention back to T2, as we've got this great battle now going on between 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. This is Christoph now leading this pack here. It's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you've got Christoph, Herb, Srivastava, and I think Billy Davis is the fourth of this
fourth car. Yes, yeah. Billy Davis, who's sitting in 6th right now, is the last car in the train as they all get past some lap traffic as they make that make the bend here at the top of roller coaster and start to make their way down.
The other thing that little coming together of the T1 did is it basically eliminated the need for the T1s to be passing this group of T2s, because that was who they were approaching right before that happened. So I don't think they're going to catch them now because of that stoppage. That means this battle is going to go pretty much uninterrupted unless they're just catching their own T2 lap cars.
All right, looks like Paul Slavonic's had some issues. He is now sitting on the pit lane, and now side by side heading down into turn 1. It's Kyle Herbst and Ryan Christoph. Now
he's going to take a peek.
Yeah, Srivastava now sitting on the inside, and he's got position, and if he steps and pushes out just a little bit wide, he's going to make it a very tough run for Christoph heading into turn 3, and that's exactly what happens as they come through that quick little bend and through NASCAR. So now
Billy's right there trying to pressure Christoph now as well, trying to make the whole train on by him.
Yeah, so now sitting up in 3rd, it's Kyle Herbst. Mark Srivastava sitting 4th. Move Ryan Christoph now back into 5th position. And I guess we've got Billy Davis now in the Coca-Cola car sitting right behind him.
What's interesting about these cars is in the baseline trim, they really wear through the front tires quite a bit. So the trick to try and make a setup work for them is to make a setup work so that you can go, whatever it is, 10 laps or so without destroying the front tires. So we're in that stretch now where we are, let's say, 8 laps in. How are those tires holding up? And if you saved a few, so if you are Kyle Herbst, Mark Srivastava, did you save a little more than maybe Ryan Christoph did? And that's why Ryan might have been a little bit slow coming off a hog 10 that lap. Let's see if Ryan's got anything to respond.
All right, and look at this. O'Gorman, a little contact from O'Gorman getting behind one of the Mustangs there, and actually that's the Marlboro Mustang of Centel.
That is so funny, because Centel and O'Gorman are good friends for a long, long time. I don't know how good friends are going to be in the morning, but they were.
I don't know how that's going to go on. All right, so we're now following DJ Alessandrini. Alessandrini now is sitting back in 7th position. And he's got
Evan Schickel right in front of him.
Yeah, he's got Schickel and Chow right ahead of him, I believe.
They are not going to make this easy by any means, and they've got lap traffic.
Yeah, so we'll see if Alessandrini's just going to sit back there, or if he's going to try and force the issue. But as they come out of Hog Pen here in just a moment, this is where the Porsches are going to shine. But it's really bottled up here.
It's one line. As you come down a roller coaster, it's pretty much one line. Anybody tries to go too wide in such a big set of cars. If it was the Skippies, I've seen it. The Spec Fords, you might get away with going. No way in the Mustangs it came as you get to go side by side down that stretch.
All right, so now they're coming down the front straight here.
Look at him.
And we've got side by side now Schickel and Chow, and Alessandrini sitting back right behind them, wants to see if he can find a way around. But it is the number 11 of Tony Chow. He's currently sitting 5th. Schickel in the 33 is 6th, and Alessandrini, who had been our pole sitter and was running in 2nd for that incident with Tom O'Gorman. He is now sitting back in 7th overall and in T1.
7th is not where he wants to be. That old famous YouTube video of I was 7th. That's not where you want to be. By the way, that was filmed at VIR in case.
That was filmed at VIR, and a Washington D.C. region driver in his Mazda, his Spec RX-7 was the one there. Definitely recommend for you all, and every time we race at VIR, I recommend it. Go to YouTube after this broadcast is done and do a search for I was 7th.
The greatest videos ever. You can't be 7th in a race. That was
look at this,
off left.
Yeah, driving off left, off track at the exit of Oak Tree, Tony Chow. So he's going to give up the position now to DJ Alessandrini. So move Alessandrini up to 6th. He's sitting right behind Evan Schickel, the 33 car, who is currently 5th. But I'll tell you, it's a long way to get back up to 4th. So we'll see here as they encounter some more Mustang traffic as they come into the top of the roller coaster and have to start working their way down. So this is gonna bottom up a little bit here.
And the Mustang is going to move over a little bit.
Yep, and he lets both of them through, and I think Schickel, maybe even before that car moved over, I think Schickel kind of forced the issue, and that is a pretty normal passing area there.
Here we go. This is Darling on the inside of House Hill. They're side by side through 1. This is a easy place to go side by side. You can go through 3 like this, but by the time you get to 4, you better sort this stuff out.
All right.
Looks like House Hill's going to stay in the lead there.
All right, and while we're watching this battle for the overall lead, we are on the last lap. So we've got the UMBC Retrievers car of Paul Darling, the number 155, right behind Ken Husil, and they are coming up on some lap traffic as well as they come out of Snake onto the straight. The drivers have been kind of alerted to the typical. Typical plan here, if you're about to be passed there, is to move all the way over drivers right, and so Husil and Darling do get by as they now come through South Bend, and you can see a little bit of rear wheel drift there from Husil as he comes out of South Bend, and now setting up for Oak Tree for the very last time. And Darling with a little bit early turn in does not get the jump out of Oak Tree that I think he wanted, and he may be just slightly out of the draft. We'll have to see. Again, very limited number of opportunities here.
Take them down on the brakes, and they've got traffic to get by. They're going to hold good. This is going to come down to just these two who can brake cleanest and not miss the turn in. Very clean. Look at Darling.
Darling all over the curbing at entrance there. Really unsettles the car. Gets a little bit more difficult for him to put the power down as we see Ken Husil now right over the curbing at Hog Pen, and as he now makes his way onto the front straight, barring any huge issues like running out of fuel, Ken Husil will cross the start-finish line, and he does, taking the win today in T1. Ken Husil. Paul Darling finishes 2nd, and look at this, Tom O'Gorman makes his way back up and finishes 3rd. But let's jump real quick here to the battle for 10th. And this is Jake Bessemer in the number 27 car. He's got Simon Asselin in the 37 right behind as they make their way down through the roller coaster. They looked like Asselin had a pretty good opportunity there at the top of the back straight, but couldn't get it done. Now the 34 car of Jacob Abrams, and he is sitting in 12th with James Paulson and Dennis Barrett right behind. And look at this, we might have a change in position here as and crossing the line.
Dennis Barrett.
Yeah, Dennis Barrett, the number 40, then Paulson, and then William Teller in the 41 car. So great little battle. We've seen that in a lot of classes. We saw that a number of times at the runoffs this past year, where the draft pass was made on the very last lap, and you saw it right there. So let's go. We'll run down the order here real quick, Larry. We'll start off with T1, where, as we mentioned, Ken Husil, the number 23 car, takes the win after that unfortunate accident between O'Gorman and Alessandrini. Paul Darling finishes second. O'Gorman works his way back up to third in the number 194 car. Ido Waxman finishes in fourth. Evan Schickel fifth. DJ Alessandrini works his way back up to sixth. Tony Chow finishes in seventh. Michael Borden finishes eighth. Dave Marcus ninth, and Jake Bessemer finishes in 10th. And then we'll jump down to the T2 field, where Andrew Pilata in the number 96 car, he takes the win.
Very quiet after the opening lap or so. He just sort of quietly did his thing. We didn't even have to talk about him much to be able to win there. Very impressive, actually, in these Mustangs, to just quietly do his thing. Great battle there from third, fourth, fifth, sixth on down, but great win there for Pilata.
Yeah, and so Ryan Field takes the second step on the podium, and then Kyle Herbst gets around Ryan Kristoff in the number 89 car, so he will finish on the last step of the podium in T2. Then Kristoff will finish in fourth, Mark Shrivastava fifth, Jeff Jacobs sixth, Danny Richardson works his way up to seventh, then Mark Sarovich eighth, Brad Adams finishes in ninth, and Bob Corzin finishes in 10th. All right, so real quick, before we take another break, let's talk, Larry, real quick about another one of the Sports Car Club of America's partners, and that is Hawk Performance, the official brake products of the Sports Car Club of America. For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance motorsport brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance street friction products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, or the new Talon street rotors, Hawk has all your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook to learn more about Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you? All right, so let's take another quick break. We're going to be up in just a few moments with the Skip Barber Formula 2000 cars, and with that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Tom O'Gorman when we come back from that break. So, Lefty,
go rest your vocal cords a little bit and be ready when you come back for some big bore racing. While Tom O steps in here, fresh off of a podium finish in that race, and he's going to help me call some Skippies.
There you go. All right, so let's take a quick break. You are listening to the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour from Virginia International Raceway.
We are ready to go. Beautiful field. Green flag flies. We are racing in the race for the medals.
And they go 4 wide. Stephen Allers' car with the red nose cone there. He is your early leader down into turn 1.
And we are green. And look at that, Aquilani. He wants it. A squeeze play. They almost touch again. Aquilani fighting for every inch on the outside. Trenery trying to not give him much, but Aquilani is able to skate through. Well, we're going to see somebody trying to get brave, not able to get it done. A little bit of lockup. Look at that move by Ayers.
Ayers sticking it to the outside. He'll have the inside here in turn number 2. 7 wide down the straightaway into turn number 1. John Black, Mizardino right behind him.
Sherman Chow, Anders Groff, and Greg Guyan now up into that top 5. And he was one of those drivers we talked about making his debut and had a tremendous season on the nationwide level.
We've seen the number 64 of Davis locking up that right front a little bit a few times. He did it in the pass of a body a few laps ago and coming side by side down into turn number 11. Last of the late breakers, it goes to First Hand, who looks like he's going to be able to take the position.
Martis in the 42 on the outside, Stein in the 39 on the inside. The 87 of Roland tucks in behind the 42. They'll go 2 by 2, brake smoke, tire smoke down into 1 there.
And
2 by 2, leaning on each other. The 42 of Partis, the 39 of Stein with a fight here.
He's making this a 5-car battle. Look at this. Oh, and a sweet move around the outside by Holden. Can he make it work? He's got the inside. And look at that cut back underneath. Oh, fascinating racing. And they're still duking it out.
One more chance to do it through turn 10, down into the braking zone of turn number 11. If you're going to make it happen, you got a good run out of there in 10.
Yeah, and I tell you, he made up a lot of ground. Here he comes. And it's going to be a braking duel. Mizarandino to the inside. And he gives him room. They both come up, both sideways, sliding. It is a drag race. Here we go to the line. Cliff White by a car length.
All right, welcome back to Virginia International Raceway for the Hoosier Super Tour eSports event. We are about to get underway with the Skip Barber Formula 2000, one of the most exciting races so far that we've had and one of the most high-demand races. I am excited. We're going to have joining me Tomo O'Gorman. Right now he's kind of sorting out a few last-minute details, and he'll be here in the booth in just a few minutes. One of those details he's sorting out is we've gone a little bit different qualifying system for the Skippy races that we've had for the earlier 2 that we just got finished with. Rather than the traditional league where people just join in, they do an hour worth of practice and then they do a qualifying and then the race. We wanted to make sure that the best of the best get in, so there's a bit of a different format. Well, they're working out some bugs in that format to make sure that everybody gets in. So we might just be on a bit of a hold for right now. At least what we've got right now are the folks that are in the session. So at least we can show you what's on screen. We can show you who's in that session. This is technically their qualifying. Things may change. We're not quite sure. We'll have to wait and see if anything does. What I can tell you right now is in that qualifying session, top of the leaderboard right now is Andrew Abbott, followed by Dylan Christie, Zach Rivard, Jeremiah McClintock, and Evan Rackison. Your top 5 so far And there's, about just a couple of minutes left in that session. We'll see if this remains. Again, they're trying to work out a couple of bugs to make sure that nothing goes off. The issue that we can see is there's only about 26 people in that session, so work with us a little bit. If you remember last week, if you were with us from Sebring, we had some really exciting races that came right down to the end. I know that we're going to see a lot of that again. I believe it was Richard Spicer ended up taking the win there in this race. The week before, it was Billy Davis at Road Atlanta. And as I look down the field here, I see Billy that just finished up the race in the T2 Mustangs. He's back out here qualifying. He's currently up to 4th, working there with his teammate Jeremiah McClintock. Looking to see if Spicer is in this field so far, and he is not. So I don't know if that's one of the ones we're waiting on, but I'm sure they'll get that all sorted out. A couple of other names that I see so far in the field. We mentioned the folks at the top there, Andrew Abbott, Dylan Christie. On the screen now there, looks like Dakota Tabler in the number 79 car. Look down the list a little further. We got Zach Whitson out of Formula V, reigning national champ at this track, in fact. What a race that was here at VIR. So he's got real world track knowledge carrying over to the virtual world. We'll see if that pays off for him. We got Rob Aller down there. Rob shows up in here as Nolan Aller, but that's Rob Aller. He's Formula Continental, former champion at this track this past year. He was actually on pole position in his Formula Continental car. So he's in this field here. We'll see how that plays out for him. So we've got the other Abbott brother in there as well, as Andrew Abbott right now is provisional pole. We've got I just saw him down here, Brandon Abbott, currently in 10th. So we've got quite a few names that we've seen in past races, also jumping here into this field of the Skip Barber race car. So this could be a pretty exciting race, as the Skippies always are. They always race close together like a Formula V or a Formula Ford. They're very much a draft intense race. There is some skill. There's a little bit of setup involved. If you have not driven one of these, there's a couple of things you can change. Generally, they end up working with the sway bar. They work with brake bias. They work with the front ride height. And what we've learned over this last couple of weeks and set these things up, that front ride height ends up being pretty critical. In fact, if you hadn't noticed, if you watch carefully with these, the ones that try to get away with running the lower ride height to give them a little bit more front camber, if you hit the curbs wrong, you start breaking that front wing, and there you can see Paul Robinson there on the number 12, and that right there is the number 25 of Andrew Abbott. Yep, a couple of Michiganders right there, in fact. But if you start running that front ride height too low and you start hitting these kind of curves, you break parts of the wing or you break the nose off, and it actually does hurt your straight line speed. So some of them start compromising and running that ride height just a little bit higher, running what they call a -3 on the front offset. So there's things that you can do to help that and run a little bit of that compromise setup. Didn't know we'd see that, because actually VIR is a very smooth track, but you throw in the curbs, you throw in the aggressiveness that you want to have going through sections like the Snake, the lower S's, as well as the upper, and even coming down the roller coaster. As you can see right here, you want to make sure that you're not going to break the car, as Charles Vaccaro is showing us how hard those curbs really can be here in this damage model here on the Skippy. So really, it could be an exciting race. Again, we're just kind of waiting for a few minutes to see if the crew gets all sorted out. We want to make sure that everyone's happy and that we get the full lot of folks into the session, and that we don't have any sort of anyone left out. Like I mentioned, what we see right now is only about 26 cars loaded in the session that we are showing you. There's Ito Waxman out of Ohio there. This Ito was just in the past race, of course. We saw him running in the Porsche in the T1s. Now he jumps right over into the Skippies. Ito, a man of many hats. Ito used to run out of the Detroit region. Quite a few folks here out of a variety of things. Some other folks have run some other races. I see here Max King, that we just saw him in the Spec Racer Ford race here earlier today. Saw Zach Rivard ran in the Spec Ford race earlier. So you got a lot of folks jumping between races. That's always good to see. A lot of versatility in driver skill as the session here gets wound down. So Kyle, I don't know that we've gotten any word yet from our technical crew on how we're going to handle this, but I know that we've got a lot more than 26 cars in the demand to get in this race.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they're going to do on their end, but I guess for now we'll just show what we have here, which is 26 or 27 drivers lined up. Again, it's not the full group of cars as we're expecting, so I wouldn't be surprised to see another session set up here. But with the cars on track right now, I guess we'll just roll with what we got here.
Okay. All right. We are. So right now we do have a gridding up. As right now it looks like we'll run through the order of what I've got in front of me, and that looks like your pole sitter and race 1 from Road Atlanta winner, Billy Davis. And he's about 50 thousandths quicker than his alongside front row there is Andrew Abbott. And on the second row, it looks like it's going to be Dylan Christie alongside Zach Rivard. The third row is going to be made up by Andrew Whitson and Jeremiah McClintock. Fourth row, Evan Rackison and Max King. On the fifth row, John Vogel and Brian Farnham. The sixth row, Dakota Tabler and Brandon Abbott. On the seventh row, Paul Robinson and Reese Everard. On the eighth row, Ido Waxman and Jonathan Bennett. On the ninth row, Jacob LeBrun and Zach Whitson. On the 10th row, Troy Davis and Rob Aller. On the 11th row, Aaron Botnick, Greg March. Behind them, John Redwine and Charles Vaccaro. And winding out the field, Sam Rolfe and Russ Lindbergh. So strategies in this car, warm those tires. And if you remember last week, bit of a glitch in the setup. They didn't get a chance to warm the tires, and it showed as we had a lot of issues on that first lap on cold tires. You're going to see a lot of this warming. And I know, Kyle, you've called a couple of races where these Skippies are dicey on cold tires.
Well, though they are, and also take a look at the track conditions. 72 degrees ambient, 115 track surface temp, and that's only going to continue to rise here, Larry. So I expect that it's going to get slicker and slicker as the race goes on, and these drivers better pull their belts tight because it's going to get wild out there.
Yeah, and it's slippery. I think the most is definitely in those corners they just went through, turns 3. In fact, we even got a sliding car off there here on the warm-up lap. Didn't catch a number on that car.
Zach Rivard in the 27.
That's Zach Rivard.
Yep.
As Zach was up there in 4th, I think he will be allowed to move back up into his starting position. But
yep, he will be. So we work our way around. So again, we only have about half of the drivers that we're supposed to have here. So I have told the race control that if they wanted to try this race again later tonight, I've got time available tonight to do that. I'm not sure if they're going to reset it and try this race again later, but I guess for now this will be what we're going to roll with about 25, 26 cars. I haven't gotten a response on that, but we'll see. We'll see what the public says about this. I think they're all having a big discussion about what they want to do. So we're all just going to kind of play this by ear here, Larry.
We'll do our best. We'll go with what we got, and we'll adjust on the fly if we need. So again, warm the tire as much as you can. Figure out who's around you. Figure out who your draft buddies are going to be. I see a couple of friends, a lot of Michigan folk here up at the top with Rivard, McClintock, Billy Davis. I know the McClintock and Davis are sitting 1st and 6th. They're going to want to play together, but they're going to have to make sure they don't get tangled up. Getting down into 1 is always dicey. We had on the races on Thursday night, we raced at this track. Huge, messy pile-ups going into 1 in several of those races. These guys have to be really careful not to get too aggressive going in there. You can go too wide through 1. You try to go 3, and it just doesn't fit.
Looks like we got Tomo here. Tom, I'll give you the mic back over, and you can kind of explain what our plan is here, and I'll let you guys take it away.
Awesome. Yes, I've made it. We do want to just voice real quick. We had an issue with advancing this from qualifying to the race qualifying session, and somewhere around 5 to 7 drivers didn't make it to the field because of that flaw. We can't figure out what exactly it was, but we're figuring that out. So there's a number of drivers that are missing here and there. Most of the top 10 is complete, and we're deeply sorry to those drivers, but it looks like we're rolling through the roller coaster down to Hog Pen for the green.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we've got our grid order set. They're all bunching up 2 by 2, and we're going to be going green in just a second with Billy Davis and Andrew Abbott leading the field. Behind the safety car, the Porsche is going to pull off, and we are going to be going green momentarily and hoping to see clean racing into 1. We've seen a couple of great races so far, and already those early lead, they're going to go single file. Behind Billy, is anyone going to pop out? The front 4, now the front 5 now are single file down the front straight. They know the drill. Well, they're already going to be popping out. We've got 3 and 4 wide deep, but the front of the pack is going to maintain 2s. Billy on the inside. They're clean 3 wide with McClintock on the outside, going deep. That's tough. Nobody's dirty yet. It's tight.
No, they're going to stay 2 wide coming up to NASCAR, and they're single file for almost all the positions in the top 10. Now, clearly the top 10. Single file, we've got 1 car wide. That's the 27 car. It's going to make it back onto the track, hopefully cleanly. There he goes.
Back again. Yeah, he had trouble in the warm-up lap. Who's that?
Doesn't get the restart, the rejoin quite as clean as he would have wanted, and John Vogel goes flying.
Vogel, yep. So one of those that lost out in that mix was Jeremiah McClintock. He had started out 6th in the grid, and I think that put him on the outside of that row that he's on. The problem there, I think, is the advantage of VIR is you want to be on the inside. And I don't know if Tom, you've raced here. I think it's hard to start on the outside of a row because you're at the whim of the person on the inside to bump you outside. I think that's what happened to McClintock.
Yeah, and there's also a bump on the outside of the exit of turn 1 that if you're not really tight to the inside coming off that corner, it can really upset the car. So you can combine that with cold tires, and you kind of get freight trained in these Skippies as Zach continues to have problems in the 27 car. Not a start that he would have wanted to have at all. Reese Everard also goes for a ride at the Oak Tree corner in the 61, comes back on track cleanly. That's good to see. But right up at the front, there's McClintock trying to stay in touch with the top 6. Just like last week at Sebring, we have a top 6 breakaway, and we saw how that how that ended. This is going to be a great race.
Yes, exactly, and it's going to be tough. And Billy and Abbott now leading that front twosome of that front 6.
And McClintock is still close enough, I think, but look at all the sliding. He just doesn't have a lot of grip. Oh, a couple contact into the top of the roller coaster. 1 car around. 19 of Zach Whitston.
Yeah, Zach Whitston. Yeah, he's got experience here. He won the Formula V at the runoffs this year. So, unfortunately, apparently this car handling not quite the same as it did back in October for him. But here's our front 6.
So it's Davis, Abbott, Christie, Whitston, Rakusin, and King in the breakaway, the top 6. And you see actually Rakusin in the 46 peeking and poking around in the backside of the 4, seeing if he can make any moves towards the front. And I don't know if you talked about it in the intro, but this track much more similar to Road Atlanta, I should say. Yeah. Back where we had 1 or 2 long straightaways, 1 or 2 obvious passing zones, rather than last week at Sebring, where it was kind of shorter straightaways, much more numerous. So we're going to see that top 6 shuffle around a lot. Every single lap is Dakota Tablet trying to fight that car to stay on the track.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. That's a good observation here about this track is you have to make those leapfrogging passes down that long Madison Avenue straightaway. Otherwise, you're just going to be slow, and the front pack is going to do that to maintain their pace. And if you're now in that second pack with McClintock and Farnham, you're going to have to do the same thing if you want to have a shot at catching that front group. Because again, this is just going to turn into, it looks like a 5-car breakaway.
Yeah,
it's going to maintain that.
3-second gap between King and 6th, who's now kind of fallen off the back of that one, and all the way up to, that's now Waxman. I think Ido Waxman has moved up in front of Jeremiah McClintock. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's Farnham. With Waxman clinging onto the back. So that kind of 3-car, whoa, Harry on the entry for Farnham. He's going to run wide off of Oak Tree, and these two going to go around him, but he'll stay within the drafting distance. I think we have a top 6 breakaway with a pretty hopeless cause for the rest of them to get back up there.
Yeah, I would agree. It's going to be really tough because the front 6 there's some pretty strong talent that aren't going to make a whole lot of mistakes. Some big names up there. We talked about Billy, who was our Road Atlanta winner, being on the pole again here. Abbott has shown some real strength in a couple of different races between this, running well, and some Spec Ford races as well.
Waxman makes the pass on McClintock, but he's super deep into the roller coaster, gathers it up, and is going to take the point for the 7th position. And this is, again, just for 7th, this is how deep the talent in this field goes. And now that's Tabler in 11th, trying to, actually, he's caught this little group back up to kind of 8th, 9th, 10th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this pack is now going to stick together as the next group in this field as we go back out.
Back at the front, Abbott has gone through and taken Christie with it. Now Davis back to 3rd, and that's what we talked about. Down the back straight at least, if not also down the front straight, we're going to have a new leader every single lap, and it's kind of a mathematics game on whether or not you want to be leading coming to the back straight on the last lap. All those guys are going to be fighting to be 2nd place, not 1st place, coming on out of Oak Tree to the back straightaway. You see they're nice, tight, and tidy at this point. The tires are getting pretty warm. Whoa, I think I saw McClintock wide.
Yes, he is. Yeah, they're going to hopefully let him back in. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck out there for a while. Yeah, the only thing about, though, what I've seen in these packs of 6 is they're almost too big to maintain this for too many laps. Every race we see a 6 breakaway, about 3-4 laps in, it turns into a 4 breakaway because somewhere there's a tangle, somebody gets anxious, and a mistake happens. Let's see if that happens as we get, we're now about a quarter of the way through this race on lap 3. How long can they maintain a battle of 6?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that was side by side on the entry to the S's with Farnham and Waxman as McClintock was reeling from going off down in the NASCAR corner through South Bend and into a really tricky decreasing braking zone in these Skippies. A lot of rear brake bias. You're going to see a lot of opposite lock on the way in here, getting the car turned. Whoa, Waxman a little bit sideways on entry, catches
just
some
like
grass.
About. Yep.
You can just kind of floor it and the car plants with the rear engine. Mid-engine just kind of powers back out of those slides.
But now the Paul Robinson right behind Jeremiah McClintock, they're on the same radio channel. Those guys actually work together at Continental, just like Billy. They're all in the same group. I'm sure that Paul and JT are now talking. At least JT's got somebody there with him, but you're in that second pack. You're just trying to survive at this point. And if you're going to survive until that front pack, somebody makes a mistake. Like I mentioned, there's 6 wide. The 6 deep pack is really hard to maintain for a long time. Like, I hate to say it, but the 4 pack that you guys were in the race you just had, it gets dicey. At some point, you start making moves, and the pack breaks up.
Oh yeah, big time. And at the front, Christie's gone through on Abbott, but there's battles all over the place. So they were side by side in single file. Now finally for Reese Everard on the back of LeBrun. Here's back at the front. That is Abbott trying to take a look at Christie. And interestingly enough, now Billy Davis dives to the inside, just trying to make sure he doesn't get into the back of Abbott. And interestingly, down the front straight, I'm not sure if that was on purpose or not, but Abbott didn't have the opportunity or didn't take the opportunity to go by Christie, which means the front straight may not really be as great a passing zone as the back straight is. So these cars potentially needing just a little bit more distance than the front straight is to get a pass and get alongside to make the run down into turn 1.
It could be, or he possibly just got a really bad run off a hog pen and just wasn't able to make the pass stick. And you notice that Billy was right on his tail, kind of expecting a little bit further braking, and maybe Abbott just didn't quite have the run or didn't quite get the push that he was expecting.
Riding on 5th place with Andrew Whitston, Rackerson in front. Billy Davis is 3rd. Andrew Abbott and Christie are in the top positions. There's still 6 cars there, so King is in the back of this. I think that's Max King clinging onto the back.
Yeah, and Max, of course, just ran in the Spec Ford race earlier, ran in the top 4 last week in the Spec Ford race, so he's been in a variety of different cars lately. Rackerson, when we were at Summit before the actual Hoosier Super Tour kicked off, Rackerson was in these cars in a battle with you and DJ for that entire race, so he knows how to cling to the front of these packs. But I also remember he stuck his nose in there quite a bit in that race, if I recall. I wonder how long he's going to have the patience to sit behind this Force number 3 sitting in front of him.
Yeah, and you saw with that awesome blimp shot just how these fields ebb and flow with big sideways on the brakes for Rackerson. Yeah, so you saw the kind of like ebbing and flowing, the accordioning through the braking zone as everyone's trying not to get into the back of the car in front, but trying to stay as close as absolutely possible. And it's just this choreographed dance that's really tough to get with this many cars, and I'm super impressed so far. We've had absolutely no contact between the top 6 and very minimal jockeying, really. I'm pretty surprised by that, as now Abbott has gone back to the point in the red number 25. Christie in the yellow car is now 2nd, but the guys 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th haven't been able to go anywhere. Now, whether or not they're just waiting for their chance or whether they can't is the big question. And now Christie back on the inside of Abbott, so down the front straight is easily a passing zone. They're going to go 2 by 2 almost all the way through, as now Abbott's got Billy Davis on the inside, slight touch.
Yeah.
And Rackerson going around the outside.
No harm, no foul, though. They're able to keep rolling without much damage, so that's good.
Look at how cool these cars look as they move across the surface. Really so much slip angle. It's so cool to watch. And they're just yeah, exactly.
You know, you ran. Did you run these? You ran these in the Thursday night race, correct?
I did. Oh no, I drove them out. I'm sorry. Oh, who is that? Oh. That is 16. Davis. Brian Farnham. No. He had some drama earlier running off the Oak Tree corner, and now gets off into the wall, completely losing the rear bumper. I don't know if he got help though. That's Waxman. Yeah, sure enough, gets into the back of him and punts him all the way to the wall. That's
you got Ito'd right there, unfortunately. So let's take one more out of that pack. You were just, you know, it's that announcer's curse. I'm going to tell you. I should have warned you. As soon as you say it's been clean racing, these kind of things happen. So Ito can blame you. He'll blame somebody.
He'll blame somebody for sure.
This pack, they're so clean. This group, you watch them come off Oak Tree, and they're just like little ants marching together in a line as they just don't miss a beat.
And I say this every time I'm watching a race like this, because as a spectator, you want it to be this crazy side-by-side, tons of exchanging positions, as now Abbott and Rakusen's going to try to get along with him through Christie. But these are the most intense races in the car, because you're just on the limit the entire time, and you may not be passing the guys, but you are just, there's no room for error. There's no room for a slip up. If you make a mistake, you're out of the draft and you're done.
And you take 3 other people with you.
And potentially, yeah, there's a lot of risk involved in just losing control of your own car for everybody else. So Rakusen barely keeps it on the track, hanging just the left rear off, exiting the hog pen.
Hashtag hurry Billy.
See, is he going to go to the outside? This is what's interesting, is the front straight at VIR here bends to the right. So if you just park your car on the inside, it's really hard to get a run around the outside, especially with turn 1 also being a right-hander. Now Rakusen looking racy on the back of Christie, and Davis is going to keep that inside line nice and tight. Whitston and King are still there, so you're both under attack and defending the same time all the way through with about 8.5 minutes left to go.
Yeah, so you've got to trust what's behind you and trust what's in front of you. Everybody's got to trust each other, but you've got to maintain that trust by making sure you're keeping that close gap. You're watching the relative screen, trying to keep that gap between 0.5 to 0.2. You're watching visually at what's in front of you, but you're hoping that guy behind you is doing the same thing, that you're all sort of working in that bunch. And when you pop out, you're hoping that they see you. So it's all this little game that you're playing. So it's for the real world a little bit of the same thing without seeing a relative screen. But you're kind of communicating through how you're moving and how you're positioning, so that the other guy kind of has an idea of where you're going to be when you're working at a train like this.
Interesting to see what just happened there in the lower S's. Andrew Abbott was able to drive away from Christie just a little bit through that section, and now Whitson a little bit wide. Yeah, keeps it on the track. That's nice to see. But he's going to drop back as now Max King has moved up one position. But what I was going to say is it looks like Abbott has a little bit more pace. Part of it could be it's easier to see when you're in the lead than when you're tucked up in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. But looking at just the sections where the draft is not coming into effect, Andrew Abbott has speed in that car to gap everybody just a little bit. Whoa, it's time.
Contact there between Christie and Rakusen. You could see that coming as Rakusen was trying to stay on the right side, and Christie was having none of it. But again, they keep rolling. No damage.
And Abbott gapping him just enough that they're only catching up to the back of him by the end of the braking zone for Roller Coaster. If he can continue to be that fast by himself through the corners, he's going to buy himself time down every straightaway. But it also means if he ever gets back into 2nd place, I think that 25 car is the strongest of the top 5 right now.
He's certainly got the corner exit speeds down. He knows where to be. So in order to maintain your position, you got to hit your corner exit. Right, you can be a little tight on mid-corner, corner entry, but if you're not hitting the corner exits, you're susceptible to getting beat at the end of the next straightaway. He's being very smart about that. As Rakusen is just anxious.
Yeah, he's the most aggressive of the group at the front, and he's actually going to take the high line and let Billy Davis get up the inside. And if Billy Davis can get the power down, no, he's not going to be able to do it in an efficient enough way. The 46 will continue to run 3rd, slots back in line, but that dark green number 46 car is the one I'm watching to make something happen here in this top 6. Whether it be positive or negative, we'll see. But I think the heat is coming from that car right now. Davis still runs 4th, and again, King and Whitston are rounding out the top 6. Now almost 9 seconds clear of 7th place McClintock.
Yeah, I think Dylan Christie is probably at some point going to get fed up with Evan, and he's going to have to make a move on Abbott just to stop having Rakusen on his heels. Billy is the most calculated, I think, in this group. He's going to sit here and he's going to be watching that ticker, knowing he's got about 3, maybe a 4th lap left, and he knows how many passes he can make per lap. But he also knows that Evan's going to be that wild card, just like you said. He's watching him doing these moves and knowing that it's only a matter of time before he either makes a move stick or makes a move and takes somebody out.
I completely agree with 3 laps left, and he's got 3 cars in front of him. So if you're going to come from 4th, you have the right amount of time to start making attacks now. But what's tricky is when you're in 4th, the draft isn't helping you nearly as much as it's helping the guy in 2nd, because you're just clinging on to the back. Now look at this. Rakusen takes the poke to the outside. This is a harder spot to pass than being on the inside for Roller Coaster.
But he's got the pick.
Huge head of steam.
He's got the pick.
Coming into the braking zones now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the brakes. Oh, it's a touch. He's going to go around. Abbott takes him out.
Did they touch?
Sure enough, they were definitely touching right on the entry. That bent braking zone is so hard. You can see from the last race if you watched it. I'm guilty myself. Rakusin gets in a little deep, and they touch just there for a moment. And Abbott goes for a big ride, and unfortunately, we called it.
Watching them here, okay, let's see him under braking. I'm looking at Rakusin thinking Rakusin's actually okay. I'm thinking Abbott came way over further than Rakusin expected.
You know, I think that's just what they call netcode. In iRacing, there's a box drawn around the car that helps predict where the car is going to be, and there may not have been visual body-to-body panel contact, but I guarantee you Abbott felt contact, and that's part of the e-racing experience. But now look at this, they're double wide coming out of turn 1 for another moment. Billy Davis trying to get to the inside of Christie, and he's going to force it there into turn number 3. The 199 now finally backs out of it and thinks better of it. So Christie is going to hold the second position for just a little bit longer, but it's down to 5 cars at the front. Rakusin with a little bit of damage on the front of that car, I suspect.
He had some before. The left front of his wing was already, you can see it there, the right front wing was already damaged. So he may have a little bit more now. I think what's interesting is Rakusin seems to be a good chaser. He seems to love that role of just being in someone's mirrors. I don't know if I've ever seen him be the chased. So we'll get to see him now as he gets to go through South Bend with Christie on his tail.
Sure. I suspect 2.5 laps to go as we're about halfway through this lap. We're not going to get the white flag at the line this time, I don't think. So everybody still has plenty of opportunity to jockey. This top 5 could be completely flipped by the time we cross the start-finish line.
Yeah, I'm watching to see what kind of run that Davis and King are getting behind them. See what kind of run that they're going to get.
Davis with the run this time, and he's actually, those guys were far enough back that Davis is going to get a huge run. And look at Rakusin gives Billy Davis the draft, or if he's not protecting, he's trying to get the 199 up there. And they're going to go side by side into a roller coaster this time. Davis around the outside, you can make that stick if you're brave. Oh, he's still there, and they touch a little bit. Christie goes for a little bit of a wiggle.
Billy wants, this is side by side, it's a roller coaster. This is tight. A little bit of damage on the back of the wing of Christie.
And Christie's going to run wide. He's off the track, 2 wheels off. Davis is going to go through easy, and now he finally goes clearly off. The road falls away.
But King's on his tail going down the front straight, and King's going to try and make that pass. Now he's on the inside going into 1, and see who's got the draft behind Evan.
Davis has to watch out not getting hung out to dry, and this is what
King's got the advantage.
Does Whitston go with him?
Not yet.
Davis around the outside, he's going to slot in. Yeah, so the top 6 becomes top 4, just as you called it.
Yeah, unfortunately there for Christie.
Yeah, he did that to himself, just got a little bit behind. There was contact earlier in the couple corners earlier with Billy Davis, but that didn't affect why Christie went off. So just a lot of pressure from Billy Davis in a really challenging spot of the track when you're by yourself, let alone when you're trying to go side by side. There's a look at your top 4. I think Christie in the yellow car just now in frame is probably out of touch from the draft of these guys, as it's about 1.7 seconds back from Whitston to Christie.
Yeah, so Whitson here, I think, is the guy, again, I always say that the one you talk the least about going into the final stretch is the one that's got the advantage, because he's just been sitting back, hanging on. But with the battling going on, we've seen Billy start to get aggressive. We just saw Max King get pretty aggressive there to make sure he was inside of Billy going into 1. We know that Evan's been aggressive. Whitson's got to be here at some point going, all right, guys, I'm going to make my move, and he's got the best draft because he's not towing anybody. He can just sort of pull right through if he can get a good run. I don't know that he got a good enough run off of Oak Tree. I think Billy did.
Rakusin hanging it out too, dropped the left rear off in the dirt exiting Oak Tree, so probably not the best run for the 46 car down the back straight. Now we're side by side for second place. Billy Davis is going to try to get through back up to the second position.
He's got it.
He's got it cleared before the braking zone and then some. So the 199 is probably in the catbird seat for the best opportunity to take the win here coming onto the final lap.
Next time by.
Again, anything could happen. There's multiple passing zones on this track, multiple straightaways.
So let me take you back about a week. And the New England region has their own league. And in that league, they run Skippies. And of course, Billy Davis is a New England region member, and so is Evan Rakusin. And they were running side by side in a race. And it came down to the 2 of them, but we'll just leave it at that. So here we are, fast forward a week later, and it's going to come down to at least 2 out of these top 4 are Evan and Billy. So is there a little bit of revenge? And I'll wait till it's all over to let you in on who ended up coming out on top of that battle, but someone's going to get revenge, and someone's going to walk away, tears in hand. Let's see who ends up.
If I'm in the 199, my job is to just make sure that I'm in second place coming onto the back straight with a nice clean run, and all I'm trying to do is keep the 139 behind me and stay close enough to the 46 car of Rakusen at the front to stay within drafting distance, so I can do exactly what he did last lap, which is not only draft up alongside but completely clear of Rakusen by the end of the braking zone of that corner. Rakusen's going to try to get as best a run as he can through this next couple of corners. This is the most important 5 corners of the race for the 46 car. See if he can get through the S's, through South Bend, and into and out of Oak Tree. That's all he's got to do right now is gap that 199. They're really close.
Really close. I'm watching Max King trying to pressure the back of Billy and be right up on him.
Davis was a little late. Davis was a little late in South Bend. He lost a car length or so, and now, whoa, a big tank slap for 46. That's going to be a problem. Rakusen, a big
great run for Billy though. But Max King also got a great run. It should put them side by side at the end of this straight.
This is the lap that it matters. White flag, 4 corners to go.
And Davis popping to the right side. This is important because he's got the line under braking, and I'm actually surprised Evan left him the right side. I would have protected on that.
I agree. And Davis is completely clear. Now what does King do? He's going to be side by side along with them. They don't touch down into the braking zone. Great to see. Side by side for second place.
King
and
makes
King's going to sweep the outside too, so Rakusen back to third. Can he even salvage the podium? Billy Davis up at the front. King second, Rakusen third. Whitston is fourth, but Davis is going to run all the way up to the curbs. Ooh, that was tight. And how much space does he have? What's the 139 going to do? It's going to be single file across the line. That doesn't happen very often in Skip Barber's, but it's going to be Billy Davis takes the win on the last lap.
Wow. What a race, what a finish, what a lap. All front 4, just nose to tail across the finish. That was amazing. And I just heard Billy chatting over to those guys saying he actually thought the race was over. Apparently they did all touch there at Oak Tree on that last lap. That's how tight it was when Evan snapped sideways. Wow, that was crazy exciting. And right behind them, it was no less exciting as if you back up there with the finish there between Zach Rivard and Jeremiah McClintock. They finished 10,000ths apart, right side by side there, and then Paul Robinson a half second behind them. So you had some great battles even behind this. I love watching Skippies because it's so exciting. They're on the knife's edge. They're slippy, they slidey, and they're so strategic. I mean, you were talking about a couple laps to go is how do you get by 3 spots and 4 laps, and then how you were saying that Billy's got 8 corners to go, and he's got to be in the right spot on that one critical Oak Tree run. It's so strategic, and then you have to execute, and it's just amazing to watch. And then seeing Max King follow Billy past Evan and to make sure that he makes that extra pass at the top of the hill coming down roller coaster. It was just brilliant to watch and execute. I love seeing that. We do. All right. Do you want to talk to Max? We can talk to Max for just a minute. We can also probably talk to Billy. I'm sure I can get him in here. We can do both? We can do. What's that? All right. All right. So we're joined now by the man who just pulled off in a second spot in a very exciting race there, Max King. Max, exciting finish there as you were able to get by Evan Rakusen to come home in that second spot. Tell me a little bit about that battle of the foursome and what it was like on that last lap as you guys were really throwing it around.
Yeah, it was a pretty good race, pretty clean all the way out through. I almost got caught up in Oak Tree a couple of times. Everyone was jamming on the brakes pretty hard there, and it was hard not to run into people. So I was just being careful, keep my nose clean, and then I figured, you know what, I'll let the top 2 guys try to take each other out and see if I can benefit from that. But they passed each other pretty clean. Tried to go around the outside and got second place there, but just wasn't enough time to get first spot there. He had just enough room on me coming out of the last corner that I couldn't pull in hard enough on the draft.
Yeah. Well, you made a pretty good run. Both you and Billy both had a great run on that the main back straight there. I think you needed probably one more lap to get past Billy, but what an exciting race. I mean, you guys were nose to tail the entire time. First it was 6, then it was 5, then it was 4. A couple of times you guys looked like you were touching. Was there actually contact there on the last 2 laps where nose to tail a few times?
No contact at all, actually, on the last 2 laps. I know guys up front had some, but I was keeping my nose clean, and it was getting close. And, I'm pretty sure he couldn't put a piece of paper in between our cars, but it was a pretty close race, and And I'm sorry I missed the interview for the Spec Racer race, but that one was a good show too. But this one, a lot more people, it was a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, you drove really well in the Spec Ford race as well. That was I was a little further back. I had a different view of it, but you and Max Grau worked really well together to have that strong finish. So really a great couple of races for you for so far today. So awesome runs. So congratulations. You going to be back next week running both cars as well?
Yeah, we'll try to do that later, and I'm going to try to get the MX-5 race, give that a shot, but I know DJ will probably get me there, but that should be good fun.
All right, cool. All right. Thank you, Max. Good job. And I think we're going to get one more quick interview with our race winner. Now with 2 wins in 3 races, Billy Davis. Billy, little Harry, as we were watching this unfold, about 3 laps to go, you're sitting in 4th and saying if he's going to do it, he's got to start moving up, and slowly chipped away. Walk me through the last 2 laps there and getting by a couple of cars.
Yeah, overall the race was pretty good, but then at the end there, I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. We had a really big breakaway group. In the past couple races, it's been 2, 3, 4. This is a big group, and then we lost a couple of people during it. But we got a bunch of fast guys, some guys that like to be that front runner in the pack. So a lot of people battling at the front. So I decided to just sit back and then just take it one at a time. And I got exactly where I wanted to be, which was 2nd place going into the back straight on the last lap. So it was all just putting my car where I wanted to be and not taking a pass if I didn't need it.
Yeah, I may have mentioned that you and Evan have definitely raced side by side in the New England region races, and you may have gotten your revenge tonight. So congratulations on that. Now with 2 wins in the Skippy races. So we will definitely look forward to seeing you next week as we're going to move to another track. So congratulations on the win.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, that was a fun one.
All right. I think we're going to wrap up the Skippies as we're closing up qualifying now on the big bore races. We're going to jump right into that. So thanks, folks. All right, we are going to jump right into that. I've got now back in the booth here with me, Greg Ginsburg. Greg,
howdy, everybody. That was for the 2nd week in a row. I got to just sit back and watch a real exciting Skip Barber race, and yeah, it was a great thing to see. And as you were talking to Max King, I actually got some information on his brother Jake, who we would have seen both in this race and also the Spec Racer Ford race. Apparently, the real lead foot is Jake King. Unfortunately, it's not on the gas pedal, it's on the brake pedal. He had some equipment issues. He actually snapped the brake pedal in his rig, so we're probably not going to see him tonight. But yeah, I've been watching, besides watching the Skip Barber race, I've been watching qualifying and was watching the practice as well for our big bore race, which we'll be going to here in just a moment. We've got a huge GT1 field this week, and in GT1, at least in practice, Chris DeShong, who was, I believe, our pole sitter at Sebring last week and had some issues with contact. He was our fastest GT1 driver on track in practice. A little bit smaller field in GT2, which are the Porsche 911 Cup cars. Caleb Patry was the fastest driver out there. Max Grau, who we saw had a great race in the Caymans a little earlier. He was our 2nd fastest, and Remy Esperance was the 3rd fastest in practice. And then in the GT3 cars, not the biggest surprise, DJ Alessandrini, fastest driver, with Paul Silvanic, Andrew Pilata rounding out the top 3 in the practice. The GT3 cars are running, they are the Audi TCR, the Audi S4 TCR cars this weekend.
Yeah, and so we, on the Thursday night, we'll call it the track nights, is sort of a preview a little bit of what the Saturday is going to be. Well, we ran these 3 cars in a race together, and it was kind of exciting in a lot of different ways, but it gave a chance, a bit of practice for what was to come. The speed delta actually wasn't such of an issue here because the speed delta for these 3 really happens on that long straightaway, whereas in the corners, not really so much of an issue. Their speed differences aren't drastic. I had a chance to drive. What you're seeing here is that Cadillac, what a monster that thing is. Yeah. First time I had really done much with it. Trying to figure out a setup, it's not easy. Apparently it's aero rear heavy, So you want to make it dance in slow corners just so it doesn't push too bad in the fast corners.
In the big sweepers, yeah, I would imagine it's probably a big challenge up through the uphill S's and going through South Bend.
Yeah, if you're late in the S's, it just pushes out like crazy. But then all of a sudden you slow down for Oak Tree, and the thing just snaps around on you. It was really awkward.
Yeah, kind of like Luke McGrew is doing there, coming out of turn 5 and going through Snake. We'll see if he can get that car gathered back up. And there's Chris DeShong in the number 41 car. As I mentioned, DeShong was the fastest driver on track in practice at Sebring last week. Had a real good start. Unfortunately, had contact with another car going into the tower turn, which kind of ruined his race, and it kind of went downhill from there. So I'm sure he's looking for a little redemption this week. There's DJ Alessandrini in the number 61 car. He was the second fastest driver in the Audi TCR cars during practice, and yeah, he's definitely looking for some redemption after the contact that he had with Tom O'Gorman in the T2 race. And then we have Ryan Kristoff in the Honda Racing HPD Audi.
It's got to be on there somewhere. A lot of grid lights at least on his Audi there. And of course Tomo in the Valvoline sponsored Porsche.
Yeah, there we go as they make through. And it was...
what an interesting thing was running the race the other night, we're going to see that again here, is those Porsches in a straight line are essentially the same speed or very similar to the Cadillacs. And so as they come down that back straight, watch the Porsches aren't going to really give anything up to the Cadillacs. They're going to give it up obviously to the S's, turn 1, turn 3,
and probably powering out of corners. I'm sure if the Cadillacs can get the power down coming out of Oak Tree, will make a big difference at all. Now we also just saw a moment ago there the writer for Grassroots Motorsports, JG Passenjak, Remy Esperance here in the Porsche 911. I mentioned he was one of our fastest GT2 drivers a little bit earlier today. Going back through some of the notes, though, we were talking, and I've been asked to make a small correction. It's a good thing he's in the car. He may not hear it, but one of our drivers that we mentioned earlier, Peyton Johnson, now he's 17 years old. He was 16 at the National Championship runoffs, and unfortunately did not have a very good start in his Porsche Cayman in the T1 race, but he is out running once again. He's in one of the GT1 Cadillacs for this race, and I was asked to make a small correction. I said that he was flat.
He was at the runoffs?
I said he was at the National Championship runoffs as a flagger. Well, unfortunately, Peyton was not able to flag the race. He was grounded, and again, he was 16 at the time. He was grounded because he had gotten a speeding ticket. So, first off, I want to congratulate his parents on some great decisions there and some very good parenting. And after his first race, hopefully we'll see some better driving from Peyton today. He doesn't have to worry about when it cracks 65 miles an hour.
At least he didn't have his sim rig taken away from him.
Yes, exactly. And we found that he hasn't done anything horrendous this week that we know of. Yeah, exactly. So
punish your kids in the middle of quarantine, in the middle of a crisis like this, when you can't go anywhere anyway. It's like, go to your room and stay there.
No, you lock them out. Put them in the front yard. Anyway, let's see here. All right, as we go through here currently and look at the order in the different classes, sitting up at the top right now, it is, let's see here. Well, there's Peyton Johnson. He's in the Coca-Cola car now, not the Logitech car. I had gotten word that he had just purchased the Logitech car. I guess when you're 17 years old, you make those last-minute purchases and all. But he is...
soft beverages.
Exactly, and he will not be having Mazda wine if he ends up on the podium a little bit later today. All right, so as we take a look and see where we are right now, Miles Crabb is your fastest driver in GT1, the number 31 Cadillac with a best lap of 148 flat. Mike Leader, second fastest in the number 27 car with a 148.267. Luke McGrew in the number 1 car, 149.326. If we jump down to the GT2 class, and again, those are the Porsche 911 Cup cars. Caleb Patry, currently your fastest. Actually, let me double check that real quick. Yeah, Patry is your fastest driver on track with a with a 150.53, and then we've got then it looks like Max Grau in the with a 151.306, so almost 0.8 of a second back.
I feel like I'm back in Spec Ford here, and Caleb Patry and Max Grau being the top 2 on the board. It's like the same guys again.
Exactly, and then we've got Tom O'Gorman, who as soon as he jumped out of the announce box, went right back into a car. He is your third fastest driver with a 151.398, so he is less than 0.1 of a second off of Max Grau. Then we've got Respi Esperance, who is fourth fastest. And in GT3, not a huge surprise here. Alessandrini, your fast driver on track with a 158.278. But look at this, Andrew Pilata in the number 14 Audi. He is now only 0.06 of a second off of Alessandrini's time with a 158.284. Kyle Herbst with a 158.769 is third fastest. Dennis Barrett a 158.989. So about 0.7 of a second separating the top 4, but only 0.06 of a second separating our top 2 in the class. So real tight racing there. I would suspect as the clock is winding down for qualifying. We have at this point about just under 3 minutes left to go.
All right, so yeah, this is going to be interesting. Like I said, the race of the night was fascinating in that trying to figure out a setup that works. The mixed classes is always interesting, but the key to this track, as always, is getting off of this oak tree. As if you don't make the turn, it's hard to get out of the turn.
And there's Peyton Johnson, coming right up to our camera to say hi.
Visit one of our well-paid cameramen right there. But yeah, if you don't get a good run off here. Now in these front drive TCR, these GT3 cars, very difficult to get the power down in the front drive. So try to make a setup where the car will rotate just correctly, but get the power down is going to be so critical. So I'll be watching to see how different are the setups between Alessandrini, Pilata, these guys. Are they on different setups to where one has it working better through transitions like the S's, and the other one's got it working better through oak tree to get the power down? Because to me, I'd give up a little in the S's, knowing that you're probably going to need a train there anyway, if I can get a better plant coming off of the oak tree.
Exactly. If you can dig out of oak tree, that's going to be your best opportunity there. I mean, likewise, and I guess this is where you have the trouble with setting balance is obviously what it would take to get yourself out of hog pen and onto the front straight as well, because probably in setting the car up to give you a good run out of oak tree might complicate things for your run onto the front straight, which is quite a bit shorter than the back straight, but I think still just as important.
Yeah, and that's the other piece about these cars with any car setup is about hog pen. Is hitting the curbs just right, because it's very bumpy, very bouncy as you come plummeting down a roller coaster. You want to hit that last right-hand kink. If you've got this really stiff setup that works for good in transitions, going through the lower and upper S's and coming around oak tree, all of a sudden you're coming downhill.
And rear end will step out. Yeah.
And it bounces you off. Right. You don't get that momentum down the front straight. So that's where the compromise of setup comes in. That makes it extremely difficult to set these cars up. So being all open setup in a class, in these classes that we have here with these three, who gets it right and who can manage that setup, or who's got it too much on the knife's edge and now has to balance it for 10 laps, maybe end up being deciding who the winner is. Darren Treacle out there in the Oreo cookie. Man, I'm hungry. How dare they put Oreos in this?
It's funny because as I've gone through and started painting the race cars for my much anticipated return to iRacing, there, all with the Oreo livery, and it's a kind of an inside joke with the Super Tour Radio folks. I've been known to make some late night runs to nearby Walmarts to stock up on every single Oreo flavor I can get.
Because you work out like 8 hours a day for 9 days a week or something like that. You can handle eating a few Oreo cookies these days. I know in your past that wasn't the case, but in your modern day, you're chiseled like Mount Rushmore rocket these days, so you can handle eating some Oreos.
Well, thank you very much. After a month or so of this quarantine, not so much, but I'll take your word for it.
Too many quarantine cookies?
Yeah, just quite possibly, yes. All right.
Mom's got some good cookies. We'll leave it at that, huh?
There you go. All right, so checkered flag is out. qualifying session is over, and while we wait for drivers to come around, again, want to give you a little bit of a tease about what's coming up here with the Super Tour. And for those of you that are wondering how fun it would be to see how top performers from the Super Tour stack up against the pro drivers competing today in sim racing, we hear that something might just be in the books. All right, SCCA members should be on the lookout for a big announcement this Tuesday. That's April 21st. Of course, I mean, all you really need to know is this Tuesday. It's coming in the weekly SCCA newsletter delivered to email inboxes by our favorite, Carrie Speed. And something fun is brewing, so definitely keep your eyes out for the big news coming up Tuesday.
Yeah, that's an exciting announcements, and I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, we've gotten along this little ride here. We've heard little birdies whisper in our ears about some neat things, and this one's going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So definitely be on the lookout. And if you are considering racing, and when you hear this announcement, you might very possibly consider racing on the Super Tour. If you are an SCCA member, all you need to do to find out how to join in, it's not too late to join. If you go to scca.com and then go to the programs section, the very last choice there, it's eMotorsports, and it's going to explain all what you have to do to join the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour League. And you too can be on track as long as you don't have to have a competition license. Well, actually, I take that back. You have to have an iRacing D license in order to race with this. But definitely want to
pretty much
to
the bare
join
minimum. You join iRacing, you have no license, you got a rookie. There's 2 different series that are open to be able to get your D license. All you have to do is run 4 of their races, not crash, not put a tire in the dirt. You do that 4 times, you've got your D license. It's really not that hard. So not asking too much. So we are gridding for the race, and I'm going to make one comment on the race on Thursday night. I ran the Cadillacs, ran the same order. Cadillacs were the first ones to take the green flag, go into turn 1. I started the race in 20th, and let me just say this. I came out of turn 1 in 7th. And it was not the greatest line for me. I didn't just suddenly come out and, wow, amazing passing. The other 13 cars didn't make it through turn 1. I'm suspecting there's going to be a lot more care and caution, and a lot less bodywork damage going on today in turn 1 than what we saw on Thursday.
Yeah, and now remember, this is because we have 3 different classes. This is going to be a split start. Of course, the front group, the Cadillacs, the GT1 cars, they will take the green flag. Then we'll have the Porsches, and as the Porsches come down, they will start racing when they get to hog pen. So essentially, when they're coming onto the front straight, they are going to start. What did we say? About 20 car lengths back. So pretty big distance. And then same thing for our third group, the Audi TCR cars. They will then start racing when they get to the to hog pen as well. So let's go. We'll start running down the grid. And since I've got this under control finally, Larry, it's only taken me 3 weeks. Let's start with the GT1 field.
You want to take this one?
I will take it.
So I'll handle the GT2 field. You can take GT1.
Perfect. All right, so starting on the grid, starting on the pole, our front row, it's going to be Miles Crabb in the number 31 car. Starting second will be Luke McGrew. Starting on the inside of the second row, Chris DeShong, our fastest practice car, and Mike Leader will start in fourth. Starting on the third row, Arnie Hendrickson will start fifth. Stephen Ford will start sixth. Then we've got seventh. We've got Adrian Hance and Justin Sang. Starting ninth, Michael Yanissi and AJ Roderick will start in 10th. James Paulson will start 11th. Peter Zamora 12th. Peyton Johnson will start 13th. Lucky number for him. Dan Bullis will start 14th. David Swig will start in 15th. Joaquin Effinger will start 16th. Then we've got Tommy Ranson 17th and GW Henderson 18th. Michael Feeney will start 19th. Alistair McEwen, what did I just say? 19th? We'll start 20th. God, I can't even count to 20. All right, Sean Lambert will start 21st. Andy DeLay from Performance Motorsports Network will start 22nd. Then Ray Bleffin 23rd with Alan Claffey 24th. Then Dan Huberty will start 25th, and Pax Rolfe will start 26th.
All right, and this is why I took GT2, because there's 8 cars.
Yes.
On the pole. Leading the way is going to be Valvoline himself, Tom O'Gorman, and alongside him, Caleb Patry. On the second row, on the inside, Max Grau. On the outside, Remy Esperance. On the next row, David Boutres alongside Ellis Spesa. On the last row, Brian Chase alongside Jacob Bessemer. And I'll have the GT3s if you want.
I got the GT3s here, no problem at all. All right, so starting on the pole for GT3 will be DJ Alessandrini, and on the outside of the front row be Andrew Pilata. Starting on the second row in GT3, Kyle Herbst will start 3rd, Dennis Barrett will start 4th, Ryan Kristoff will start 5th with Darren Treacle starting 6th, then Paul Slavonic 7th, Max Kittleson will start 8th, Eric Brown 9th with JG Pasterjack starting right beside him in 10th. Then we've got Alex Jensen 11th, Joe Camilleri 12th, and Michael Fox will start 13th in the Audis.
So we've got a minute. I want to just talk a little bit about this virtual track that we're at, which is VIR. You and I were there back in October. That was the first time I'd ever been there, and it was something that had not been on my bucket list before, but I guess I kind of added it and checked it off at the same time. The place is just gorgeous, and what's amazing to me is when you walk through the main paddock and you see these old classic barns that turned into the tech shed or the timing and scoring tower, and you can see one in the background there at the south end. The place just feels like the 50s just restored to a modern track, and it's just beautiful. You walk and you see the green trees and the flowing land. You hear the echoes, and if you stand at those condos alongside the upper S's, and you get a chance to stand on those balconies, which I had the luck to do, and you watch cars come up the S's, you just feel like you're just immersed in this motorsport world. It's just beautiful to sit back here in the virtual world and watch these cars do their thing. It's awesome. It's a different perspective, but it's awesome to see we get to watch the GT1s come down the front straight now to start the race.
All right, so let's take a look here as I'm trying to get our timing and scoring system back up and running. And all right, so we've got the Cadillacs now. The pace car is on the pit lane. The Cadillacs are coming down the front straight, and the green flag is out for that first group. We've got Miles Crabb and Luke McGrew in the front row with Chris DeShong and Mike Leader, and stepping out to the front of the field is the 31 car of Crabb, and it looks like DeShong moves his way up into second position, putting both McGrew and Leader back behind. Wow. Let's see here as they come through. Yeah, great start there, and the Cadillacs still trying to get things figured out, but nice clean start for them as they come through. And now the 8-car Porsche field coming down the front straight here, and they get the green flag. And let's take a look. It's Tom O'Gorman. He's got the point with right beside him, Caleb Patry, and the number 198 car is to the outside. Right behind them is Max Grau sitting in third, as O'Gorman has the inside position going into turns 1 and 2, and it looks like he's going to take over the lead as our Audis now start their way through turns 1 and 2.
And it looks like Pilata and DJ already starting to pull away at the front, and that would be Kyle there in the third spot, as we might have 3 already starting to pull away from that the TCRs or the GT3s. We go back to the Cadillacs. So what a great launch there for Crabb to take that turn 1. And DeShong really was able to filter in. So the top 3 lining up and just taking off. And look at all that horsepower going down Madison Avenue there as all these Cadillac GT1 cars. It just sounds awesome.
All right, now as they come up and start to make their way down through the roller coaster, it is Crabb, DeShong, then Leader and McGrew. Leader and McGrew, not quite nose to tail, but a couple car lengths off our leaders. And then we've got Hendrickson and Hans. And yeah, Max Grau, who is sitting third in GT2. He goes off at South Bend, and he's trying to make his way back up onto the track as the GT3 class, all the TCR cars.
Kristoff behind him now wide going around Oak Tree.
Yeah, it looks like Ryan Kristoff pushed wide, and that might have been in order.
Crowd coming back on.
Yeah, that's what I think. And so Kristoff loses a lot of positions there in GT3, but now let's move back up to our GT1 field, and there is the battle. That's the battle for 16th with Joaquin Effinger and Tony Ransom and Andy DeLay from Burning Rubber Racing Report as well. And it looks like
coming together a little bit.
Yep, Henderson gets around, and so there we go. There's some. All right, there's Jake Bessemer. He is in the 36 car. He is currently running in 5th in GT2. Wow, right underneath the camera, Dave Burtis goes spinning off. Burtis was sitting 6th in GT2, the Porsche 911 Cup cars, as they came up through, that is coming through Snake. So he went off right by turn 5. And yeah.
That was 1, yeah.
No, actually, that's coming through turn 3, and it took them a while to get it gathered up. All right, so let's jump back to our GT1 leaders now as they make their way down the back straight. And
leader.
Yeah, he's under a bit of duress there as leader now to the inside, but Deschamps going to have the position coming into South Bend unless he gives up the. Yeah, so he tucked back underneath, so he's going to take back 5th spot now. Yeah, that's right, with McGrew in the number 1 car getting around Deschamps. So drop Deschamps now down to 4th. McGrew move him up to 3rd. Leader and Krebs still walking away.
They're not nearly. You watch these GT3, these Audis, they're very consistent. You can make a mistake, you put your foot down on the gas. You can see DJ goes wide there. Yeah, he might lose a spot, but he'll gather it back up. The 3 of these aren't going to lose each other. Those Cadillacs, you put a tire off, you do something like that, you're into the tree line. It's just the way they go.
All right, so let's take a look here in GT3. Sitting up at the top of the field, it's the 301 car now, and he is your leader in class, followed by Alessandrini, the 301 car. Is that the 301?
No, it's not. It's Andrew Pilata.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Sorry, that's the 14 car.
Yeah.
The 14 car of Pilata, but for some reason I'm seeing the 301.
I see that too, yeah.
Yeah, and he's opened up a bit of a gap now to DJ Alessandrini. Alessandrini about 2 car lengths back, with Kyle Herbst in the mellow yellow number 89 car sitting back.
These guys are all autocross buddies from way back, so they know each other very, very well. This battling is going to go along all night, I suspect, between these 3.
And my mistake, that's the Sour Patch Kids car, not the mellow yellow car. I guess I am showing my age here.
Sour Patch. Kyle loves his Sour Patch Kids. He wouldn't, and then of course DJ's got the fake plate in the back of his car. Go go go! It is, yes. So DJ's got his GLTC car, his Honda Civic that he runs, is painted exactly like that with the black hood and the white trim. His white car, it's exactly the same paint he's put here onto his Audi GCR car. So it's really cool, the custom paint you can put on these things, or you can just go to Trading Paints and put it on the one like Coca-Cola that you see here on the Cadillac there.
Yeah, and talk about trading paint there, going up into the top of the roller coaster with Yanissi and I believe that was Joaquin Effinger along with him. Peyton Johnson, yeah. Yeah, Peyton Johnson in the 37 car as they were heading up towards the top of the roller coaster. It looked like there might have been a little bit of touch going on there as they make their way down now out of Hog Pen and onto the front straight, and Yanissi looks to have gotten the better of that deal now. All right, let's pick up the battle in GT2. And this is the battle for 3rd with the number 13 car. Larry, I believe that is Esperance, who's gotten around Caleb Patry.
Mm-hmm.
And Patry making a... Wow, Patry locks him up, making the run down into turn 1, and he gets right into the door of Esperance.
And Spiza probably saw it happening in front of him. He gets on the brakes and locking it up. Unfortunately, he takes himself out of that little mix there. But yeah, that was unfortunate. Patry just got it sliding and takes Esperance out. So.
Yeah, you can see the rear wheels lock up and the rear end came around under braking and it was done. All right, so let's go back over to the TCR cars now.
These guys cannot shake each other. This is going to go on a while. So what we saw last week at Sebring with TCRs is they kind of would break up a little bit. There was a battle of 4, 2 battles of 2, and because the way that track is, right, there's little short straightaways and things. But as Tom mentioned, if you were listening during the Skippy race, this track is a lot more like Road Atlanta. It's a couple of tight corners and some really long straightaways. So the tight corners, it's all single file, or these guys decide to go side by side.
Yeah, I would say that a great side-by-side action there between Alessandrini and Herbst. And, you know, you get to a point as you come out of turn 4, the left hook, and you go into turn 5 where things just really tighten up, and there was just no way they were going to keep that side-by-side battle going. But amazing battle there, pretty much side-by-side from turn 1 all the way to turn 5 as they make their way out of South Bend now, and they'll make the run up to Oak Tree.
But as I was saying, these things, you know, it's whereas at Sebring, you can maybe break away because there's so many of these short straights, and then it's just things kind of get broken up. This, you go through all these tight little corners, and you get to this long straightaway, and it's hard to break away because suddenly you're back into this drafting scenario, and nobody really finds themselves getting away because of the nature of this track. And you watch them as they come back around. Suddenly Herbst and Alessandrini are going to catch right back up to Plata and right back to where they started from.
Yeah, so the car that we probably ought to watch here as well is the car that's sitting in 4th, and that's Paul Sylvanek in the number 528 car. That with all that side-by-side action between our 2nd and 3rd place runners, Sylvanek made up a ton of ground. He made up probably a good 10 car lengths from turn 1 down to turn 5, and he's a little bit out of that draft. But I'll tell you, if Alessandrini and Herbst are so content on driving side by side here, Sylvanek will likely have a good fight for the lead there in just a few moments. All right, we're watching Arnie Henderson in the Hendrickson in the GT1 car. Hendrickson is currently I believe your 6th place runner. All right, he is running P8, and he spun out of 6th position coming out of Oak Tree, so he's trying to make up some ground now.
All right. So a good shot of Legru there in his Cadillac, currently running in 4th. But right now it's Crab out in front of this group, a couple of seconds on leader. As the Cadillacs have really spread themselves out, which, you know, you've watched a lot of GT1 races in your day. It's kind of what my history of GT1 has been. It's been a lot of somebody breaks away, hits the lead. These are not typically your side-by-side racing.
No.
It's a test of speed and endurance.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And Michael Fox, who had apparently gone off on the outside of NASCAR, moved over. He's letting some of that GT1 field go through, and there we go. Looks like the number 19 car is... yeah, that's as he went off there at turn 3. So went off right at NASCAR, and he's back underway. All right, let's jump back to the battle for the lead in GT3 and the TCR cars. And we've got Alessandrini and now. Look at that move. Yeah, Kyle Herbst, the 89 car, he is off, and he's going for the long ride all the way out to the tire wall over on the outside of turn 14. He's going to be taking the grass route down through the roller coaster there.
Long way to go.
Yeah, let's jump back and take a look at this real quick.
Yeah, you know, he got on the brakes. I don't know if what he saw in front of him, he thought that they were locking up, but he made a little dart to the left and just couldn't recover.
Yeah, and it looks like he did manage to avoid the tire wall there, but that's going to put him a long way out of the battle, and it looks like he's now dropped back behind Ryan Kristoff and Hans. So he's now all the way back in 8th position. So went from 3rd to 8th.
All right, so that's going to take him out. So we're down to a 2-dog fight there in the GT3s. Stephen Ford here in the number 3 in the GT1s.
Yeah, and he's currently running 5th, and he's got James Paulson hounding him as they now come out of Hog Pen and make their way onto the front straight. Paulson drops a wheel, looks like, on the exit there. Love the detail. We see the little shot of flames out of the exhaust on the overrun there, and they're making their way now down under braking. Exactly.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, Paulson gets backs up to the rear of Ford now as they come through turn 3. So he made up a little bit of ground there on the front straight. Might have had a little bit better run out of Oak Tree, or probably not out of Oak Tree, out of Hog Pen. Now as they come through left hook, and as things tighten up and the handling gets a little bit more difficult for these cars right in this little section here. Yeah, we'll see who got the setup better.
It's, you know, obviously Oak Tree is probably the most critical corner exit you can make on this track. I would almost argue that the entry of the snake is probably the next most, because that straightaway is a lot more critical than people give credit for. In trying to test for the Spec 4 this week, I would make a turn in, I go, that was pretty good, and I'd watch my relative time to my previous best drop, go 110 slow, 210 slow, 310 slow, lap after lap, as LSB's sliding around there in what appears to be turn 1.
Yeah, that's turns 1 and 2.
Yep, and it's amazing that if you give up just a little bit to get just the right angle, you can get on the gas so much harder entering the snake that it carries your speed all the way up into the upper S's. Really is amazing how much of a difference that it makes, and it doesn't even feel it until you realize how much earlier. You have to almost watch your clocks to know how much of a difference it makes. Up at the front, let me get a direct take a shot, because leader is now chipped away what was a 3-second lead now to less than 1 second now on Crabbe. Miles Crabbe's lead now is down about 8/10 now to Mike Leader.
And they're actually coming up on some slower GT1 traffic, which really might impact things here. Yeah, and a lot of the TCR cars now, as they come through, let's take a look here, as they now come through turn 4 through left hook and make their way through 5, and yeah, they're going to come up on that battle in GT3. Coming out of Snake and perhaps through the S's. We'll see if our leaders in GT1 actually have to do a little bit of checking up through the S's. It looks like they're just far enough back that they probably won't get back to the GT3 cars until they get up to Oak Tree here. Although they are coming around right now. They've got Kyle Herbst right in front of them. Herbst holds all the way out to driver's left as long as he can. Yeah, he's trying. He just doesn't have the amount of track there to do it. And now as they come out of Oak Tree, you'll see leader move around him.
We weren't following too much of Miles Crabbe there to know how that lead went from 3. I was watching the timer, and it wasn't like one huge move that went from 3 seconds down to the 0.8. It was little bit by bit. These cars do wear through tires a little bit. I'm wondering if Crabbe got off to that lead, had a great setup for cold tires, but when the tires heat up, if this setup's a little bit pushy or something, and that's let Mike Leader get up on the tail of him.
All right, and we're watching the battle now for 3rd in GT1. Chris DeShong and Luke McGrew. You saw them; they were side by side coming out of Oak Tree, and DeShong had the position going into the top of the roller coaster. Yeah, and he drops a wheel again on the exit of Hog Pen, and as they now make their way down, they're going to be coming up on Kyle Herbst. But now let's go back to the lead. The front 2 cars in GT1, Miles Crabbe, Mike Leader, as they make their way through all that GT3 traffic. Now as they come through NASCAR and left hook.
And Leader's now just getting right on and pressuring them. And this isn't, we watched that Skippy race and how strategic it had to be, that you needed to be in on the last lap so that you could make the right pass. Cadillacs aren't like this. These things have so much ridiculous power. You just make the move when you can and you go by. You don't worry about making sure you pass in the draft and don't get repassed. That's not what we're looking at here. I think Leader's going to just stick his nose in as soon as he can and try to get by.
Yeah, and as they now make their way up, start up through the S's here, and they exit the S's, head towards South Bend. And we'll see now as they come through, and it looks like Leader runs a little bit wider, not quite as tidy as our leader, Miles Crabbe, coming through South Bend, but they set up for Oak Tree, and that's just an absolutely gorgeous shot there, as you see the tree itself hanging over the pavement, and how shaded the pavement gets as you come out of there. But now our leaders come down Madison Avenue, and as they do, they're going to get past a couple of the GT3 cars, and let's see here. Looks like they've got pretty clear running, probably at least until they get down the hill. But Leader now in the number 27 car. He's all over the back of Miles Crabbe. It looks like Kyle Herbst continues to have some problems here. He was right behind Andy DeLay in that Burning Rubber Racing Report Cadillac, and Herbst goes around right at the turn-in for Oak Tree.
It's a tire wall right back there where the 5K course ran us right back in October, right?
Yeah. All right, so we've got now, as our leaders are going by, let's take a look at the GT3 battle for the lead. We've got Andrew Pilata and Allison Drini.
The leader's going by, and then Mike Leader put the tire off, but that leader's going by, and Allison Drini moving over a little bit gave the chance for Pilata to step inside.
Yeah, well, gave opportunity for Pilata to step inside, but Miles Crabb was able to just kind of sneak away there as both Allison Drini and Crabb were starting to get at it.
And Leader can't be happy with this because he was given a chance to go around them, and he stuck his toes, I should say, off in turn 1. Now he's stuck behind these guys. He's got to use the short straight to get by them, but he just lost about 3 seconds. He's now 3.8 behind Miles Crabb, and he was about 0.5 behind him when this all started. He's got a lot of work to do in the next lap and a half.
All right, going off now, and that looks to be over at turn 3. That is the number 3 of Stephen Ford in one of the GT1 Cadillacs. Ford was running in 4th position, I believe, and he has fallen now all the way back to 7th in class, so pretty disastrous for him there. So let's jump back to the lead now in GT3 with Allison Drini and Pilata now as they make their way up Madison Avenue. It looks like Chris DeShong, and who's currently sitting 3rd in class. He's got, actually, this is the battle for 3rd in GT1 between DeShong and Luke McGrew in the number 1 car.
McGrew's got to love this because now they're going to catch these GT3 cars going down roller coaster, and there's nothing that DeShong can do, and it should allow McGrew a good run off a hog pen all the way down into 1 because it's going to make DeShong wait to get on the gas.
Exactly, and DeShong being fairly close to Pilata's car there has to wait until things straighten out, and there you go. McGrew now all over the back of Chris DeShong as they now make the run down into turn 1. DeGrew moves to the inside momentarily. DeShong covers, and McGrew is going to follow him right through turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, DeShong did a really good job being defensive there. Although he had to wait, he basically blocked the whole entire outside of the track to make sure that McGrew couldn't get a run either. So he said, if I can't go, neither can you, and then we're going to go on Mike. Almost like a green flag start. He said, we're going to wait until I go. And then they went down into 1 that way. So
yeah, and time's running out, here because we are on the very last lap, Larry. So as this battle for 3rd in GT1 comes now out of turn 5 and heads down Snake, not a lot of time left for Luke McGrew if he's going to take the last step on the podium in GT1.
He's going to have to make a move, and you can see right now they're passing one of our GT2 Porsches. Just one goes one way, one goes the other as they go around down South Bend. They're trying everything.
Whoa, and McGrew gets loose coming out of South Bend. He's got to get the car back underneath him. Yeah, he gets back up to him now, but doesn't get a good run. Actually gets a disastrous exit out of Oak Tree. Maybe not disastrous, but DeShong really opened things up.
When you lose it in one corner and you catch it, but you're slow in the next corner, I call the second corner the brown slide. Because if whatever happens in the first quarter, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're still trying to figure out how to get the car back underneath you. Exactly. All right, so DeShong now misses the apex at the entrance of the roller coaster, and he's got an issue. But here we go, side by side. This is the battle. Yep, we've got Allison Drini to the inside, and then to the outside, we've got our second place car. Yeah, that's Pilata. Let's see what happens now as they make their way down.
I don't think he's got a good enough run. DJ's got the position on the inside. I don't think the run's good enough for Pilata.
All right, so already having taken the checkered flag, Miles Crabb in the number 31 car. He is your overall winner, the GT1 winner, with James Paulson finishing in second. Peter Zamora, third step on the podium. Actually, that's I'm sorry, DeShong finishing in second, and then in third, right?
Yep. So Crabb, leader, DeShong, your top three in GT1. And as you see O'Gorman there, taking the win in GT2, ahead of Caleb Patry, as you can see him right there, number 198. For Caleb to come through, and then third place would be Jacob Bessemer.
Jacob Bessemer, exactly, in the number 36 car, and we're seeing him come through Hog Pen right now for the very last time, and onto the front straight. Well, let's take a look at the number 35 car right behind him. I don't believe that's for position, however. No, the 35 car, that's Max Grouse. He's a lap down.
Yep. All right, so it's some exciting runs there. Again, those GT3, those CCR cars always race close together. We did see that, when Kyle Herbst had that off, it brought it down to the two-car race, and right up to the end, even the side-by-side going into the roller coaster in the last lap, always exciting. And the GT1s, it's tough. They are a handle. They're really, really tough to handle there. Miles Crabb showing some pretty good ice in his veins to hold off that late charge there from Mike Leader to hold on for the win. So pretty exciting racing there on all three classes. Very tough track to run multiple classes, and I think they all showed very clean racing in the intermixing.
Exactly. All right, so let's go. We'll run down the top 10 in each class here, taking the win, as we mentioned, overall and in GT1, Miles Crabb. Finishing second, Mike Leader, and third step on the podium in GT1, Chris DeShong. Luke McGrew finishes fourth, James Paulson fifth, Peter Zamora sixth, Stephen Ford seventh, Arnie Hendrickson finishes eighth, Michael Yanissi ninth, and Dan Bolus finishes in 10th. Of course, we can't get up to 10 in GT2 because I think we only had 8 starters. So Tom O'Gorman took the win, Caleb Patry second, Jake Bassimer finished in third, then Remy Esperance fourth, Ellis Pisa fifth, Max Grau sixth, Brian Chase and David Boudris round out the field. In GT3, DJ Alessandrini takes the win. In his Audi, Andrew Pilato finishes second, Paul Sylvanik finished in third with Darren Treacle coming in fourth, just off the podium. Max Kittleson fifth, Dennis Barrett sixth, Ryan Kristoff seventh, Kyle Herbst, who was running up in contention for a podium for quite some time, finishes eighth, and Eric Brown and JG Pasterjak rounds out the top 10.
All right, so we got a couple things to close up before we head to the next race?
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking for actually, Kyle, why don't you jump in here, because we've got some a quick announcement from one of our organizers here, from John Hunter, and I think you've got the skinny on it.
Yeah, sure. I can when we mention real quick about next week's race, I can hit on that one first.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so next week's race, if you'd seen the schedule previously, we were talking about doing this Circuit of the Americas. We've had a bit of a schedule swap. I believe next week we're going to be, if I'm not mistaken, at Watkins Glen.
Yes, we're going to be at Watkins Glen next week. It was originally scheduled to be Circuit of the Americas, and essentially those two tracks are going to swap positions. So Circuit of the Americas will be going from week 4. It will be run on week 6, and next week will be Kyle's favorite track, Watkins Glen.
And I love the track. It's a great track. It is classic SCCA. It is the roots of SCCA. In fact, SCCA Foundation's headquarters are up there at Watkins Glen. It is a lot of meaning to the core of SCCA. So we'll be there in a week. I promise we'll get all the qualifying things fixed and sorted out, and look for a lot of the races, the pre-races, of course, the fun stuff Tuesday, the sort of pre-races Thursday, and it'll be a fun week at Watkins Glen on Saturday. But I think we had a few other things that we wanted to mention here before we go to break.
All right, also, before we jump to the final race of the evening, which will be the MX5 race, which is typically one of the most anticipated races of the night, I want to make sure that you subscribe to the SCCA YouTube channel and hit the like button to make sure that you show that you'll enjoy this content, because we got lots more of it coming up. If you're on Facebook, make sure you like the SCCA Facebook page and drop a comment below to let us know how we're doing. We'll be back in just a few minutes here with the MX5 race, guys, so I'll leave it back to you.
All right, excellent. Yeah, we'll be back in just a few moments. Real quick, before we do jump, Kyle, want to mention one of the SCCA's premium partners, and that is Hagerty Insurance. Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for the SCCA. Hagerty is the world's largest membership, insurance, and media organization for collectible vehicles and their owners. Dedicated to the love and protection of driving, Hagerty offers on-track, HPDE, collector, and competitive vehicle insurance. And don't forget the Hagerty Drivers Club, the ultimate experience for people who love cars. Join the club and take advantage of members-only events and experiences, exclusive subscription to the award-winning Hagerty magazine, automotive discounts, and more. Hagerty, for people who love cars. All right, and with that, let's take a few-moment break. You are listening to the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour from Virginia International Raceway.
speed.
International Raceway, the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour. I'm Greg Ginsberg with Larry McLeod, and we're getting ready, Larry, for the last race of the evening, Global MX5 Cup.
We've had so much fun so far, but as always, the Miatas tend to put on a great show. I don't expect anything less out of these guys. We had a great race last week that came right down to the last lap, as well as the week before with the at Road Atlanta. VIR puts on a spectacular wheel-to-wheel races. We saw the runoffs a couple of months ago. Every race, every class seemed to be great wheel-to-wheel racing, including the Spec Miatas, and here we are back again with a bunch of Miatas. These guys are not going to be able to get away from each other. It's going to be a whole lot of single file through the S's and a whole lot of drafting and maybe some swapping the spots down the back straight and then back to single file down the roller coasters. Who can be disciplined, who can work with somebody, and who can be in the right spot at the right time to make the right pass and come out on top.
All right, and now remember, because of all the excitement around the Global MX5 Cup, much like the Skip Barber race, have a slightly different qualifying procedure, where the drivers had to go through a 60-minute qualifying session to then work their way into the main race, and the top 50 of those cars would meet the top 5 finishers from last week. So DJ Alessandrini, Robert Cusera, Tom O'Gorman, Steve Cugliari, and Brad Perez got a free ride into this week's race, and then they are going to be joined by about 50 some other cars here as they are all gridding up. Of course, not of course, but unfortunately we did miss most of the qualifying here, but we'll start to run down the grid. But Kyle, can we take a look and see what the weather is like here now at VIR? There we go. Looks like ambient temperatures actually dropped just a little bit, but as is typical for Virginia International Raceway with the heat soak that it gets on that pavement, temperatures have stayed pretty steady, right at about 115 degrees, and it should make for a pretty slick track as things get underway here. But Larry, looks like most everybody is gridded up. Why don't we start to, well, looks like it'll We've got a couple cars left. Looks like the 39 car flashing his headlights a couple times there. Maybe he's getting ready to, maybe he actually looks like he might be 7th. All right, as things are getting gridded up here, and we're going to have the drivers start off on their pace lap in just a few moments, why don't we start to run down the grid?
I'll tell you what, why don't we call out the grid for the top 20, and then we'll mention a couple other key names. Maybe we'll mention a few people that had not been in the field in the last couple of weeks. Maybe some new names. 50 names, a lot to go through here. But let me at least call out who we have on the pole, because it's a new pole sitter in the MX-5s. Ilio Mendez, who did drive very well within the top pack last week. He's your pole sitter here, getting into the 210s, 210.6. He'll be alongside Tony Chow, who's also had some pretty successful runs in the eSports a couple of weeks here. They'll be just ahead of some fast finishers from last week, or top 2 from last week, Robert Casera and DJ Alessandrini. Those 2 are now starting on the 2nd row here. Behind them, Selin Rowland and Michael Borden. Behind them on row 4, Michael Gagliardo and Max King. On the 5th row, Sam Scott and Jake King.
And it looks like Jake King got his brake pedal fixed. Might not need, or maybe he just feels like he doesn't need it.
He doesn't need it. To be honest, you don't need a brake pedal. What's the car in front of you is for? On the 6th row, and this is where it gets interesting, Brad Perez on the inside, Tom O'Gorman on the outside. Tom has started on the front row in every one of these races in Miata so far. Apparently his drafting thing didn't work out for him. He's back starting in 12th. Just behind, or just off to his rear quarter, is Zach Rubin, who finished up in the top 3 or 4 in the first race at Road Atlanta. Zach also is going to be one of those to try and move up. Mike Lawson's going to be behind them, Mark Shrivastava. Then on the inside of row 8, alongside Edwin Raffles, Kevin Zhu alongside Ryan Davies, Bob Casera, the elder of the Caseras, back there on row 10 alongside David Marcus. So a couple of names there I mentioned about the Casera family, with Robert up there sitting on the 2nd row, Bob Casera back there on the 10th row. Go through the list down a little further. We've got folks like Blair Bear Deffenbaugh joining the field again today.
We've got Blake Clements, who is known Spec Miata driver and very well regarded Spec Miata driver in the number 56 car.
A couple of names just from the last race. Andrew Pilata, who finished 2nd in the GT3s, and jumped in here. Interesting about Pilata, C Street in SCCA solo autocross is basically ND Miatas. He won C Street Solo National Championship in 2018. In exactly like one of these cars, of course, not in the back MX-5, so it's a full stock suspension, except maybe some shock absorbers. Very familiar with how these cars run. So he's back there and just jumping out of the Audi, just like DJ Alessandrini. He's back in here alongside, I see, Kyle Herb. So a couple of guys making that transition.
Yeah, we see Mark Coffin in the number 43 car. Mark, longtime H Production and IT driver with a lot of seat time at VIR. We'll have to see if he can move his way up through the field. Bobby Blankenship, of course, here as well. I think you mentioned that we had Darren Treacle. Treacle finished 2nd at the National Championship runoffs at Daytona, and I believe that was 2015 in a Honda Civic. That was in STL.
Let's see.
All right, looks like, we've got a wreck here. Got a crash on the back straight towards the tail end of the field. Car that's gone around. That is the number 31 car of Chris Schaefer out of Texas, and looks like he's now going to take up the rear of the field. A lot of damage to the left front of that car, so there's probably a car with some matching damage as well. As the pace car now brings our pole sitter down, and that's Leo Mendez, brings he and Tony Chow down through the roller coaster, and as is typical, as is typical at VIR. As is typical at VIR, a very fast pace lap here as they now come out of Hog Pen onto the front straight, and our pole sitter should be getting the checkered, or not the checkered flag. I've started a race by being, I've started a race at VIR by being shown the checkered flag instead of the green flag. It has happened. My protest failed, however. Anyway, all right, so heading down now past the starter stand, going down into turn 1. It's the number 64 car of Mendez, followed by Chow. And actually, Chow now drops back. He's got the 177 car, Robert Gusera, who was, I believe, our 2nd place finisher last week at Sebring. And he's now sitting side by side with our leader. And as you can see here, a lot of side-by-side racing. And this is pretty typical for Spec Miata racing and a lot of IT racing here at VIR. Things will start to straighten out as they come through turn through left hook here, turn 4, and go into turn 5 as there just isn't anywhere to go. Yeah, big. Yeah, that's Sam Scott in the number 98 car. He goes around coming into left hook, and whoa, just bats out of the way. Almost got his nose clipped off there, but he's going to fall all the way to the rear of the field.
Ninth too. That's going to put him all the way in the back of 50 cars. That's a long train to get behind. Car to the wall in the background there, but yeah, it's tough to stay clean in these opening laps. But if you want to be at the front, you've got to stay clean. And right now, the top few are doing that. As Becerra, as he was, like we mentioned, Robert had finished second last week, had a great run with DJ Alessandrini, and he's showing some speed again here in the early stages here in the MX-5. Little contact maybe on a braking?
Yeah, it looks like he got right into the rear of our leader, the 64 car of Mendez, as they were coming into Oak Tree, and now going to the grass. Not too concerned with having our leader throw out the defensive move on the start to the 177 car of Robert Becerra. He's trying to motor by, going all the way down driver's left, and we'll see if he starts to squeeze Mendez now as they go into 15. He takes a big ride over the curbing there, and as they go into 14, yeah, he didn't have enough clearance, and he gets clipped. And yeah, he gets a hold of, and O'Gorman going for the wild. Yeah, he's going for the real wild ride down through the roller coaster there, behind the tire wall. That's a move I've never seen before. And O'Gorman now rejoins. But probably the biggest news right there, we've got a new leader. It is the number 27 car, Celine Roland. Spent the last year in the real Global MX-5 Cup Series. Actually, I believe the last 2 years. Tony Chow running in second. Mendez in the 64 car, who did get together with the 177. He is now dropped back in third. DJ Alessandrini in fourth. Mike Borden running in fifth.
Yep, and I'm watching just at the tail end of this field is the names we've seen in some races. So you've got Dak Rubin and Max King sitting back there in, I think, 7th and 8th. They're trying to hang on to that front pack and not lose track of it.
Yeah, a little surprising, sitting down towards the rear end of the field, sitting, I think, 34th right now, Ray Blethen, now 33rd, Ray Blethen. A T4 Mazda RX-8 driver. I think the last time he drove here was for the national championship runoffs. Both he and his brother drive identical cars. All right, so now coming through the uphill S's, it's the 27 car, Celine Roland with Max Chow running in second position, with Mendez in third, and whoa, see here. Yeah, lots of growls, yeah, lots of, I'm already confused. Big surprise. All right. Let's take a look here. Now, Chow moves all the way driver's left, and he drives.
Try and follow him, but
yeah,
he is to lose that draft.
Yeah, he gets around the 64 car, and now Alessandrini with really no place to go because Tony Chow is kind of blocking up the center of the track there, and they're three wide.
Yep.
Yeah, coming into 13 now, and Alessandrini's to the outside and Chow to the inside. Alessandrini makes the move around into second now from the outside from driver's left. So we still have Celine Roland in the 27 car. He is still your leader, and as these battles go on for second and third, might be the opportunity that Roland needs to perhaps walk away a little bit.
Yeah, well, now the DJ has done what he needed to do and get himself up into that second spot. Roland's not going to be able to shake DJ. This is, of all the cars we see DJ run, this is the one he runs the most. He's going to have a hard time, Roland is, in shaking DJ all. What could happen is these two could start to really move away, and DJ is going to be smart about that. But I don't know that Roland is quick enough in this car to pull away with DJ. It all depends on what happens behind them. As you can see already with Borden and Chow going side by side, they're actually helping TJ and Roland pull away a little bit.
Exactly. All they're doing is they're backing up the rest of the field there, and they've got about 8 cars right behind them. Behind Chow, we've got Mendez in the 64. We've got Gagliardo, Max King, Zach Rubin, Rubin had a disastrous week last week in the MX-5 at Sebring. But we're now on board with Tom O'Gorman. He is running in 12th position. He's got Ed Raffles right ahead of him, and he's got Mark Shrivastava about half a second back from him. But now we're taking a look back at our leaders, and you can see the different entries that through the top part of the S's that Alessandrini takes over Roland, and we've seen some very different lines, but again, Roland already having to get defensive, and I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain that for for 7 laps.
What I see in that, because this is the older version of the Oak Tree, which really drives like a classic decreasing radius corner. If you've been out to VIR lately, the way they've opened up the aprons, you can basically drive like a giant steady state corner. Here you see DJ bump wrapping. This is, hey, I want to work with you. I don't want to pass you. I want to get away from people. This is just smart tactics and trying to pull away. But going back to the Oak Tree turn, nowadays, because they've opened it up so much, it's no longer really a decreasing radius corner, but in this scan, the older version...
Oh, we've got contact here real quick between the 64 car of Mendez and Tony Chow, and Chow has to take a long ride down the hill. He's going to rejoin, it looks like in 10th position, so lots of positions lost there for Tony Chow. He ends up back on track right ahead of Zach Rubin.
And actually it's going to be up, I think, even behind all them. It's going to be just ahead of Roffles and O'Gorman, and that's going to help O'Gorman give O'Gorman somebody to draft around. Actually, what that's going to be. But yeah, going back to that corner, what it is, it creates different lines. And so what I've seen a lot of this week is, because of decreasing radius, people will sometimes take a shallow entry and diamond the corner off. And Zach Rubin now sliding through one, they've had some help there. This has got some damage on the rear of that car.
Yeah, I think he might have had quite a bit of help going through one there, and it looks like Chow's still having some issues. Let's we'll see if we can pick that back up here.
Yeah, as the King brothers now are starting to work together to stay inside that top 7.
All right, and there's O'Gorman now. Alessandrini. I say O'Gorman because it's in the paint scheme from O'Gorman's TCA Civic. Alessandrini now right behind the number 27 car, Celine Rowan, as they make their way through the uphill S's. And as you can see here, Roland not using all the track there, and you can see the car actually start to push wide on the exit of the S's. And what happens? He can't get the car back over for South Bend, but somehow manages to gather things up through the grass and hold on to the position over Alessandrini. I thought Alessandrini was probably just going to drive straight on by, but I think he showed a little citizenship there.
I really think that this pace is faster with DJ in front, and I don't know if Roland would believe that, but DJ might. And if DJ could get around him, which maybe he does now,
and he may do it right now as they go side by side down the back straight here, and Alessandrini clear from Roland, and Roland doesn't get the push, but the 42 car, Michael Borden, right up to the rear of our new second place runner, Celine Roland, as you can already see now going down through the roller coaster here that Alessandrini already opens up about a 5 car length lead over Roland, and heading off track there. Shrivastava falls off track, and that drops him now down into the 20s. Tom O'Gorman, continuing to have issues.
Okay, so unfortunately, Tom's just having all kinds of issues today. It was actually with Shrivastava, as it looks like they were coming down.
Yeah, they just come into the roller coaster, and Shrivastava started to make his way over. I don't think he knew that O'Gorman was there.
Yeah,
and
probably not the place to be side by side for sure. And
oof. Yeah, it looks like the 72 car gets into him as well.
Yeah.
And that's Michael Lawson in the 72 car that unfortunately didn't have much of anywhere to go as O'Gorman came back across the track there. All right, so let's go pick up the lead here again.
Let me go back to what I said earlier about DJ being the lead. It might be a little quicker, and I think if Roland can get up under DJ and now push him down the straightaways and not try to pass, then let DJ lead through the S's and through one and through roller coaster, you might actually see Roland and DJ be able to pull away. It's whether or not they can shake Borden. I think that's going to be the key, because they let Borden hang around because I think Roland was the slower of the leaders. DJ is just, I think, faster through some of the slower sections and probably should have been leading anyway. DJ tried to be the good guy and tried to just push and not to make that aggressive move. But I think now he realized he had to, otherwise his pack is just going to get all mixed up.
Yeah, and as they came out of South Bend and went into Oak Tree, notice that the number 13 car was pardon me, not the 13 car. The 13 car, Gagliardo, was starting to get pretty racy with Michael Borden in the number 42 car, and starting to move to the inside. And yeah, here we go side by side, and it doesn't look like Gagliardo's up close enough to attempt to pass on Borden. He's going to follow him down through the roller coaster, but that also gives some options to Max King. I think a lot of that battling is going to probably leave Roland kind of in the middle all by himself, because at this point it looks like Alessandrini has some pace that Roland just doesn't. We're watching Kyle Herbst now, who's he started in 36th position, started 3/4 of the way back through the field. He's already up into the top, almost into the top 10. He's got the 10th position in his sight.
I don't think he even had a qualifying time. I think he ended up just in the mix, thrown in the end. So having to fight his way through, which he's done a fantastic job at with the wonderful SpongeBob livery on there, going away from his usual Sour Patch Kids, and I appreciate both. Nothing beats a little bit of dropping the deck and flop like a fish livery on the side of your car.
All right, look, we've got another change here up at the front of the field. Michael Borden, the number 42 car, has gotten around Celine Roland. Yeah, and as they work their way through here.
And the King brothers are together. Here they go.
Yeah, there we go. 14 and 39 are the two King brothers. We've got Max the Elder in the 14 car, followed by the 39 of Jake right behind. And they're trying to make their way up. They're sitting right on the tail of Celine Roland, the number 27 car, who had been sitting up in second place, but it looks like Roland starting to get himself pushed back through the field here.
Yeah, and I think he's just a couple of spots where he just missed that braking point. I think turn 4 is one of them, and you just start to slide, you go wide a little bit, and that's what happened there.
And
actually, I think it might have been Mendez that caused some of that stuff, and then they caught right up to him. But then what this has allowed is Borden and DJ are now 7/10 clear of them, and all it takes is 1 or 2 more corners, and Borden and Alessandrini could be checking away from these guys.
Yeah, they can check out. We were just watching a moment ago the number 13 of Gagliardo, who's the one sitting right in front of the King brothers. And Gagliardo, beautiful drift all the way through 10 and 11, which is 10 is the turn leading up to Oak Tree, and then through 11, and he managed to hold that drift all the way through. As we now see our leader, DJ Alessandrini, coming down through Hog Pen, followed by the rest of the field here. And so we've got let's see here. We're following Max King right now, who's sitting right behind the 13 car of Michael Gagliardo, and we'll see if Max decides to make a move heading down into turn 1, or if he's going to try and push Gagliardo up. I mean, they're so far off the front of the next pack that it might make sense for Max to try and get around if he thinks he can get it done. And they go side by side into 3, and he could try the over/under, but I think his brother ended up maybe a little bit too close to allow Max to get underneath Gagliardo, and they're now making their way through NASCAR.
Yeah, just not quite enough room there to go side by side. It's really not 2 lines through 1. I think in the real track these days there are 2 really solid lines through 1. In fact, the fastest line through 1 for what we saw at the runoffs was kind of about 3/4 deep. There's a nice strip of fresh pavement out there you kind of look for. But in this older scan of VIR, it's really a 1-line corner once you get under the brakes.
Yeah, there's not a lot of grip to the outside, and I think that as there looked as though there might have been position for Max King to slide the car underneath Gagliardo, but his brother Jake had actually come up to the inside and was almost at Max King's quarter, and there just wasn't anywhere for Max King to go to even attempt to pass. As we see that battle now coming up into 10 and 11, and once again the 13 car of Gagliardo with a pretty good slip angle all the way through there.
Max has him this time by. He got a pretty good run, and I think if Jake's behind him with any kind of a push, he's not close enough.
No, he's not close enough. But at this point, it looks like Gagliardo's rear. He's running off the rear tires already. All right, so look at this now. Battle for second going into 14. We've got the 42 car of Borden to the inside, and then we've got Celine Roland in the 27 car to the outside. And Borden's going to keep hold of that position, but as they continue to battle now, or as they start to battle, you can see now Yeah, you can see Alessandrini though starting to move away as Borden has some issues there with the apex curbing at Hogpen. And now going around, that's the 26 car of Raffles, and that's coming down. That's the first one. Yeah, with Kyle Herbst. So Herbst's problems have moved on from the GT3 race now into the MX5 race as well. That was the first left-hander coming through the roller coaster. All right, so Max King has now forced his way past Michael Gagliardo in the 13 car. He brings Jake along with him, and then Elio Mendez, who started off as our pole sitter. Mendez now is sitting in 6th as he gets around Michael Gagliardo as well. So Gagliardo now has fallen all the way from 4th back to 7th in the span of just 2 turns.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast that goes away. You miss a couple of braking points. But Max is definitely aggressive. He's fast right now. He's hitting all of his marks. Jake's just trying to stick with him. But look at the front end there on Mendez's MX-5. You can see the left front tire. You can see it's actually kind of sticking out as all the damage there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see where O'Gorman's car ran all the way up the hood line there. All right, let's take a look now. Coming through South Bend, things are starting to tighten up a little bit behind our leader Alessandrini. Again, Borden and Roland. It looks like they have actually that is now some back marker traffic. We're looking at Kyle Vallejos in the Speed Racer number 5, and then Kyle Herbst.
Little reference to a little nickname I gave some folks, Pile of Kyles. I love the Speed Racer livery on these cars. It really looks good with the angles of the newer MX-5 NDs. Great run there for Herbst, though. He should have him pretty easily going up the next straightaway.
Yeah, you can see he got a good run out of Oak Tree, and he should be able to draft right on by him here. Comes to the inside, and that should set him up. Even if he doesn't clear completely, that should set him up for 14 at the top of the roller coaster.
He's got a fairly quick Zach Rubin out in front of him, so if the two of them can kind of work together, they could pick up another couple of spots here before it's all said and done. But just not giving it up.
Nope, and now coming over the curbing there, and yeah, now the battle's done when the tires just aren't touching the ground. Kind of makes it hard to push the car forward. All right, let's take a look now as we jump back up. This is the battle for 4th with Max King and Mike Gagliardo. Gagliardo looks as though he managed to get back around both Jake King and Leo Mendez. So Gagliardo now in 5th. Last time by at this point, he was in 7th. And there's Preston Pardis sitting on the pit lane. Preston Pardis, our 2017 Spec Miata National Champion, and this past year, the runner-up at Virginia International Raceway.
Wow.
Yeah, another great run, another hard charger. Caleb Patry started 31st, and again, don't think he had much of a practice or qualifying session, having run the previous race, and he's now up to 8th. Yeah. Zach Rubin, 2 weeks in a row, just lots and lots of problems for Rubin. As Rubin now gets back underway, and that's coming through 3. And it looked for a moment as though, yeah, he probably got a bit of a touch from behind.
Yeah. One of those virtual touches, but it's unfortunate.
All right. So let's take a look. We're going to jump back up to the top of the field now, and looks like we've got perhaps one more lap to go. As our leader, Alessandrini, now comes up to over the crest of the hill on the back straight. He's going to set up for 13, and then on the brakes into 14, the top of the roller coaster. And looking at the time, we should have one more lap, pushing back a little bit from there. Again, the battle for, look at this. Yeah, this was the battle for 4th with Max King, Elio Mendez, and Jake King. And I think Mendez, Mendez manages to get through. Or was that, or was that with Gagliardo? Actually, I think that was Jake Mendez. King, Max King, and Gagliardo, who's still trying to get things under control here and get back on the track surface.
Yeah, so Mendez and Jake King managed to get through that, but Max and Gagliardo did not.
Yeah, and that was a pretty optimistic move, I think we'll say, at the top of 14 that caused that. All right, let's take a look now where we've got Andrew Pilata on board, and that is 16th. He's got David Marcus in the number 17 car right ahead of him. And as they come down the front straight, Pilata now might have a position going down into turn 1. He's driver's right. Doesn't seem to be up alongside yet, however, and maybe a little bit too much to the inside. We'll have to see, but he's able to keep the car in there and hold off the number 17 car as they come out of 2, so he will take the position.
Yeah, a couple of real strong autocrossers there with David Marcus, your B Street 2019 national champion, and of course, mentioned Pilata being a multi-time national champ. Last time he won was 2018 in C Street.
All right, real quick, let's take a look here. This is the battle now for 7th with Chow and Patry, and it looked like for a moment there that Tony Chow was going to be able to get the move done, coming underneath the bridge, coming through Snake, and setting up for the uphill S's. But Patry manages to hold on to the position as they head by. So we're now following our leader. That is DJ Alessandrini, the number 91 car, on his very last lap here, and as he heads up to the roller coaster, we're now watching the King brothers. We've got Jake the younger, we've got Max the older, and they are going at it now as they pass Madison Avenue going up towards turn 14, and we'll see which one of those two drivers in the sibling rivalry takes the position.
Which one's mom's favorite? Let's find out.
All right.
Come down roller coaster side by side. This is not over between these two.
All right, and with that, Alessandrini comes down the front straight. He's going to take the checkered flag and the win. Finishing second will be Michael Borden. Finishing third will be Celine Roland in the number 27 car. Then we've got Mendez, and the battle still going on. This is the battle for 5th between Max and Jake, and taking the position, it is going to be Max King in the 14. He snuck down the inside there, 2 wheels in the dirt, so he will finish 5th. Brother Jake in the 39 car will finish in 6th. And then we've got Caleb Patry finishing in 7th. Let's take a look now coming down the roller coaster. That's the 28 of Ed Raffles. Raffles currently is running 16th, and he's going to cross the line there just behind Dave Marcus and Andrew Pilata.
Some really great races there. This is winding out the battle here of 18, 19, and 20, with Zach Rubin not having a great day for him. And there's one of the Abbotts there, the number 25, Andrew, finishing down pit lane. Never how you want to finish the race.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And especially since start-finish is actually after the pit out. So. All right, here is the battle for, looks like 32nd with Joaquin Effinger, Michael Gagliardo, who took that wild ride in the number 13 car. And Evan Gobble in the 15, who's running 31st here. And as they come down, they're going to pass some lap traffic here. Actually, no, that's for position. So he gets around the 700 car. So Joaquin Effinger loses position to Rolf, and then Rolf gets back around. Then the 700 takes to the dirt. Oh, and into the wall! Into the wall. The number 8 car packs Rolf. Hard impact coming down through the roller coaster just before Hog Pen, and that is going to give Joaquin Effinger 31st position. As he comes home, crosses the start-finish line, and we'll have to see if Pax Rolf can get across the stripe there. But yeah, not a way that you want to finish the race, especially when everybody's watching. All right, so let's run down the finishing order here real quick, Larry. Again, taking the win, DJ Alessandrini, the number 91 car, Michael Borden second, Celine Rowan third. That's the last step on the podium. Elio Mendez, who is our pole sitter, finishes in 4th. Max King 5th, Jake King 6th, Caleb Patry finishes 7th, Tony Chow 8th, Blake Clements works his way up to 9th in the number 56 car. Kyle Herbst finishes in 10th, Kyle Vallejos 11th, Brad Perez 12th, Andrew Pilata 13th, David Marcus 14th. Cooper Lilly finishes in 15th. And we've got Edwin Raffles 16th, Ryan Davies 17th, Christian Cecil 18th, Zach Rubin 19th, and Bob Kucera finishing in 20th.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting there. I think DJ certainly showing he's got continued consistency in this car week after week. He's got now 3 wins in 3 weeks in this car. Certainly showing he's the man to beat when it comes to running the MX-5. Showed some patience today, did not start in the front row, had to kind of work his way, sat behind Celine Roland for a couple of laps, decided, okay, now's the moment to see, I'll lead, and then let the guys Borden and Roland kind of battle out behind him while he just quietly kept his pace and hit his marks. Showed some real speed. The battle with Borden and Roland really went on right up until the very end. So that was
right until the end.
Yeah,
exactly. Hey, Kyle, let's see, because I see them online here. Let's see if we can get both Jake and Max King in here for a quick little interview at the end. Yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. All right. Hopefully we've got both Jake and Max. Are you guys there? Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I got you.
Excellent. All right, excellent. So first off, Jake, we gotten word that that you were a little heavy on the brake pedal earlier today. What do you have to do to get everything fixed back up and back in the racing this afternoon?
Me and the old man, we took apart the pedals and got some metal around, bent it up the shape of the pedal, and rolled it in, and it's working pretty fine now. I mean.
Yeah, it looked pretty good, especially towards the end of the race. Max, 2 wheels in the dirt, driver's right, coming down the front straight to take the position away from your brother. How was that race today?
Oh, that was fun. All right, so yeah, that was a great battle there. You know, I was up front for a little bit, and then you know, eventually people on the back straight got a little too aggressive and got a bunch of damage. And then, you know, I found Jake at the end of the race with you know, just as much damage, maybe if not just a little bit more. And he was trying to bang my side view mirror in there, so I just want to take, you know, precautionary reasons there. Don't want any more damage.
yeah, you don't want that trip. Don't want that trip to the stewards. I thought people only flip the side view mirrors in real life. I didn't know you could do that in iRacing too.
Know. You're on the back straight. You're nose to tail. You're bump drafting. At what point do you say to each other, "All bets are off. First one, you know, gets first dinner"? I mean, when do you make that call?
We're just on Discord talking to each other, and we're just like, no, let's just go for it and see who can get the position at the end.
I wanted to give him a nice hefty bump draft there in the end, you know, just to, you know, put the exclamation part on my front bumper.
Well, because my son and I, we race together in Spec Fords. We're always talking to each other. We have one rule that we don't take each other out. Did you guys have that rule as you're fighting for 5th and 6th place? Was there a rule in place?
No, not at all. You know, we usually race pretty clean anyway. We've been doing it since we were kids, even on the split screen in the old Gran Turismo days. And no, we were just having a good time. We knew we weren't going to wreck each other off. We raced each other a bunch on here, but we're just giving each other some smack talk down the back straight, and I was giving him some smacks on the bumper.
Excellent.
We had a great shot of it. You go back and watch it on the YouTube stream. You're going to see that. It was pretty good. You can see you guys just giving you a nice little friendly family hug down the back straight. Looked pretty good.
Look great. Well, Max and Jake, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and good run today. Hopefully we'll see you next week, not from Circuit of the Americas, but from Watkins Glen.
Sounds good. See you there.
Sounds good. I just want to thank Triple T Cutting Tools and Doggone Racing, Mike Amy. They're watching us and supporting us along. So shout out to South Jersey guys. Hopefully you watch us next week and another 15,000 views.
There we go. Thanks, guys. All right, so as we get ready to wrap up, a couple notes that we want to, of course, make everybody aware of. As we mentioned, race next week is going to be at Watkins Glen, not at Circuit of the Americas. As originally published, we're going to be at Circuit of the Americas in I guess 3 weeks. But also for all the SCCA members and everybody who is interested in driving as part of the eSports Super Tour, watch your mailboxes on Tuesday for the weekly SCCA newsletter. Going to have some big news around the eSports Super Tour here.
Around your virtual mailboxes.
Yeah.
Just like Ralphie waiting for his, secret anti-decoder ring. You guys are gonna be waiting for something special. Just saying.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be special, and I think we've teased it a lot. But obviously, we might have some information on how you might be racing against some pro racers on the eSports Super Tour. Not that we don't have enough pro racers already with us, like Tom O'Gorman, but definitely watch your mailboxes on Tuesday. And with that, I want to, of course, go through the weekly list of thanks. Thanks, of course, to Kyle Heyer, who is joining us in the announce booth and did all of the producing and directing on behalf of SimTV. Once again, a spectacular job from him. Also want to thank all the folks from the SCCA that make Larry's and my job easy. That's John Hunter, Kristen Poole, Courtney Rivers, Steve Ray, and Tom O'Gorman as well, who, of course, was in the booth as well. We want to thank him for everything that he's done. And Larry, of course, thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Greg, of course.
All right. So we're going to be back in just 1 week next Saturday, same bat time, same bat channel, 5 p.m. We're going to be broadcasting from Kyle Heyer's favorite racetrack, that is Watkins Glen International in upstate New York. And until then, I'm Greg Ginsburg with Larry McLeod. You are listening to the 2020 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA eSports Super Tour.